This is Infection, the survival podcast recorded live on Tuesday, May 7th, 2019, episode 225. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Infection, the survival podcast. Infection is your source for the latest information on survival video games. We'll bring you the latest news, reviews, updates, and more each and every week. My name is Nick Craig. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicholas M. Craig. Of course, visit our website. It is infectionpodcast.com. He is also the host of this show. I don't want to take anything away from him. Joining me from the great state of Idaho, Brian.
Yes.
Sorry, joining me is not the right word. Also here, hosting from the great state of Idaho. Yes. Brian Aldridge. Hello, Brian. How are you?
Aren't I a guest VJ or something like that? I'm a co-VJ.
VJ? What are you? And old MTV? That's what they were called.
It's like the old DJs, but we do it with video.
Like that's what MTV's people were called, VJs, because they played videos on. That sounds weird, though. Okay.
Co-VJ just doesn't. Who knows?
Okay, go ahead, Brian. How do you want to spin this one? Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, if you want to find me at Boyce Computer on Twitter, of course, my blog biteoftech.com, and also on you can go on there. I have my how-to tutorial series if you're interested in game development, and the Discord there has been continuing to grow for that specific one. It's all development-related topics. Also, we have our website, infectionpodcast.com. On the right-hand side, we have a join Discord server. So if you want to join us throughout the week, suggest news, come and hang out, maybe give some input. We've got that. You can click it. It has a free mobile app. It's got a web-based client. Also has a nice application that runs in the lower right-hand corner, very low weight, so it doesn't take up a lot of resources, and it's easy to use. Also, we have our Steam group if you want to get notifications before the live show starts. Maybe you want to get a little notice. If you happen to be at your computer sitting there, it'll pop up. You can join us live and participate, chat throughout the show. We have our YouTube, Twitch channel on there, and then all the audio format. So if you have whatever kind of platform you want to listen to it on, we have that for our podcast. And then show notes. Finally, every single episode, we do a very lengthy show notes for. And so if you are ever wondering what's our source for one of these episodes, anything that we're talking about, we have all the links and information on that particular episodes, and you just click it, jump in and browse around. So it works very well. You can even check those out as you're watching the video. You can go and see the original articles that we're referring to.
Now, I can't take any of the credit for that. Brian does like 98% of the work on the show notes, so that is all Brian on that. Which
Nick does the during the show hard work. I just sit here and talk.
You won't find me doing pre-work.
I do the before show.
Yeah, you won't find me doing prep. The show would be a real mess every week if I had to do the preparation. I'm the master procrastinator, so that's a good nickname. Maybe I should start that into a show. If this whole Infection podcast thing doesn't work out. Let's see. Last week we played League. Mm-hmm. I had a great time. Now you not so much, but
yeah,
it was fun.
Played.
We had a good time.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's just it frustrates me,
as it should. So we did that
because I don't know what all the things. I mean, the thing is if I played it more, if I played it and learned at least a few characters, what they're different. Because that's what I was doing, is playing, and I'm kind of saying, okay, well, if I attack with this, what's it doing? You can read the description, but it doesn't really teach you chaining. And I understand other of this type of game. It's just this one, it's different. So you have to kind of learn what the character does, when you use the attacks. And actually, I was getting a little bit of a handle on it, with certain characters by the end. So if I really wanted to play it, I just would have to play it more, and then I would enjoy it,
which is what I've done, but and I've ruined my life with it. So nevertheless, if you didn't join us for League of Legends this week, we've got another free game, so there's no excuse. It is Unturned, which is, in my estimation, one of the hardest core survival games that we in the genre. It is a very hardcore survival game. So
it's one where you actually have to sneak around zombies.
Yeah, very much.
Run in and there's a limited amount of ammo. So that makes it very much a survival game. You have maybe a couple bullets, and you have to decide, okay, well, do I want to use these and kill these zombies, or do I want to try to melee them? If you melee them, there's a good chance you're going to die. So it's one of those where it's kind of like what Daisy used to be to me. Daisy, I remember when I first started playing it, I was so scared of the zombies, and I was like creeping around the towns and everything, just because everything was such a threat to me. So it kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah. Before we go any further, I do want to thank Idle Ollie for he subscribed between this week and last week's show here on Twitch. We appreciate that. And Brian, I guess this is some news. It's not on the notes or anything anywhere, but we booked our Airbnb for Seattle.
Yes.
So let's cross our fingers that PAX West gives us press passes and we're just gonna have a free weekend in Seattle with nothing to do. So yeah, we booked our Airbnbs. We booked our Airbnb in Seattle. So we are going to PAX West 2019. It was officially announced this week. It is Labor Day weekend as always, and that will take place, as I scroll through my calendar, that will take place August 30th, 31st, and then it will go into September 1st, Sunday. So it'll be those 3 days for PAX. And actually, don't they do it on Monday now? I think they do. Isn't it 4? No, that's PAX East. One of them is 4 days. Maybe it's East. But
I thought they did 4 days, and we just left a day early.
Yeah,
I thought they were 4 days, and we just didn't stay the last day.
Maybe that's what it is. So yeah, it's either 3 or 4 days, but it's Labor Day weekend, and we'll be out on the West Coast covering so obviously survival gaming, but then some general gaming stuff as well.
When we booked the place, we were keeping in mind, all right, is this a place that we could do the live show in and have plenty of room? Where we're looking at the location of, oh, here would be the perfect place to do the live show while we're there. Oh, here we can play board games while we're there and stream it.
Yeah, we're going all in, man.
Yeah, because that's one thing we learned last year is, okay, wait a minute, like this was a cramped. If you would have seen the accommodations of where we were doing that live show. Like that was the door behind us during that show was the entry to the whole area that we're at.
We were taking pictures off walls. We were rearranging. I mean, it was a real mess.
We were using like half the space of the whole thing just to do the show.
I don't believe that thing was over 400 square feet.
Yeah, it was pretty small.
Nevertheless, we got a real nice place this year. It's got a nice big couch that I'm thinking we'll be able to do. I think we did 2 shows last year, which we did a pre-show, and then we did kind of a pre-show hangout, and then we did kind of a post-show recap. So we'll do both of those. Hopefully we'll stream some board games or just something. I don't know what we'll do. We'll find something to stream as well. And then of course all of our video content, and I'm working on something else, some other interesting live stream stuff that hopefully we'll be able to bring to you from possibly the show floor. So stay tuned for that as well, but we'll be out there, and I mean, that's it. That's what we're doing. PAX West. We're looking forward to it. And
that reminds me, I do need to book my flight.
So do I.
For
I'm waiting.
Yeah. So that's nailed down. I don't know. I don't think that's how it works.
That's what I'm hoping for, because it's a lot more expensive than last year, and it's the exact same flight. So we're trying to figure that out. But yeah, so stay tuned for that. And by the way, if you're going out to PAX West, please let us know so we can hang out. That's we haven't met we haven't met somebody that hasn't traveled with us. Well, that's not true. We met Heisenberg at PAX East.
Heisenberg, yep.
But yeah, if you're going to be out in Seattle for PAX West, let us know. Grab lunch or dinner or drinks or whatever works for you.
Yep. Very good.
Yes, sir.
One thing I wanted to mention, as far as the Humble Bundle, this one's upcoming Humble Bundle, it actually includes the Black Ops 4. It's the Black Ops 4 Battle Edition. So if you're interested, and maybe you don't have Black Ops, this would be a good price to get it at. And you can just subscribe to the monthly bundle that they're doing, and you'll get that plus I think 4 or 5 other games. Seems like they've been doing about that many extra games beyond the main ones. So you'll get the full Black Ops, which is the Battle.net launcher, and then whatever games they include in there for, is it $12 or $15? I keep hearing they're going to raise it. So it's $12 right now. Supposedly they're going to make it $15 eventually. So you can get this one now for $12.
Yes, and do that. And it also will help support our trip, as we're talking about our trip out to Seattle. So all that stuff is on our website. It's infectionpodcast.com support. Anything you do, Amazon, Humble Bundle, Twitch subscriptions, all that
Yeah,
stuff.
the
funds
Amazon
us.
Prime things, those Amazon Prime things that people do here when they're subscribing here in Twitch.
Yeah.
That, along with the Humble Bundle, is pretty much what paid for our ability to do that Airbnb.
Yep.
We paid for it with those funds. And so if you remember to do that, you'll notice in the Discord, if your name becomes not yellow, because we have it in the Discord where you get a special role whenever you're subscribed to us on Twitch. And so when that goes away, when it expires, your name will go back to purple, or it'll go back to blue, and then that'll be a good reminder for you to renew that subscription for the free Prime one.
Yes.
So, very good.
All right, we're getting our hate on our self promotion, so we'll move on. Our Epic check didn't clear this week, so we have to promote our own stuff because Epic's not paying us to talk good about their platform or their games. That's just a little inside scoop. Let's open with an acquisition. This is kind of cool. We've talked about this game a lot, and it's obviously not a survival game, but it is a game that we've talked about and a lot of our community likes to play. Rocket League was actually acquired by Epic this week, which is a big move for Epic. Now, obviously, Rocket League is kind of, I wouldn't say it's at it's definitely past its peak. I mean, it was at peak of popularity a couple of years ago. But nevertheless, this is a very interesting.
There's still a lot of people playing it, and it's a really good example, which I assume is why they're doing it. It's a really good example of physics and everything else, league play, the way to deal with networks on the Unreal Engine, because this is one of those Unreal Engine products. Who knows if the reason that they're purchasing them is because there's technology that they have built up in Rocket League that they want to integrate into the engine, and it's cheaper for them rather than to remake it. First of all, what has Rocket League done? They've done the cross-platform play very well. What is Epic getting ready to do? Epic's getting ready to introduce a number of cross-platform things on their Epic store, as far as, and not even those being tied to the Epic store. It's going to be features like cross-platform voice chat, plus cross-platform groups and messaging. So there may be a strategic reason of why they're doing this beyond just the game itself. And if so, that's going to be a positive thing for everyone, because they'll pull out all these things that are right now just in Rocket League, and possibly, and this isn't something, there's no inside knowledge here. I'm not saying something that I'm saying, oh, this is going to happen in 6 months, but there's a very good chance that these will then start rolling into the engine, because they've done this sort of thing in the past.
Yeah.
But I know some people are mad at one thing is there was actually review bombing happening, of course, on Steam, where people now are giving negative reviews. So PH is saying Rocket League has voice over IP. No, that's not what I said. If you actually listen to what I said, the whole thing, I said that Epic will be introducing ... I said from here they're getting cross-platform grouping and things like that.
So in
they've
terms
done
of
a good job of it.
Now, in terms of fake news, the Epic hysteria is on full display with this story, because right after this news broke, video game reporters, I'm not going to call these people journalists, because they don't they clearly don't do any research, and we'll talk about this later on in the program. I do want to thank our friend UGX Vibe, as he called us, the best survival podcast as we talk about Rocket League. Thank you. Appreciate it. Right away, Brian, the first thing that started coming out about this is that, oh my God, Epic is going to remove Rocket League from Steam, and the tweets and the mass hysteria online and Reddit and everything else.
That first article was stating it as a fact.
Yes, Epic
will remove it.
They are absolutely
removing the title.
Yeah, they are removing it from Steam. Turns out
and they even gave a timeline.
Turns out to be total bullshit, as usual with a lot of this stuff. Don't know where this rumor started. But as this coursed through the video game industry, turned out to be totally fake, and Epic has now released multiple statements on it, saying it is still going to be available to purchase on Steam. It will still be it will still be available. It will still be updated on Steam, and we don't have any plans to remove it from Steam. They said now in the future things could change, but we don't have anything planned. So that's it. So there you go. They purchased Rocket League, and looks like it sold about 10.5 million copies, and it's got 57 million registered players across the game. So who knows how much they purchased.
And they've done a really good job with the esports of Rocket League. I mean, that's one game that's really done well, and I think a lot of other ones have struggled to have that kind of a consistent esports system, because that's one thing about Rocket League is it is very consistent with their esports. So they have stated over and over again, nothing is changing. There's everything as far as how the studio runs, it's going to stay the same. You know, they pretty much answered straight down the line. Does this mean that anything is going to change? No, nothing is going to change.
Yeah.
And especially in the short term, they're not actually changing anything right now. Now that doesn't, of course, we've seen this. What was it with PUBG? You know, they got purchased by somebody, and all this stuff happens. Sure, things will change over time. Decisions and ways that they do things will adjust. But I don't think that you're going to turn around and be like, oh, this is a different Rocket League. I don't want to play this anymore. I think they've liked the strategy and everything they've done up to this point, and they want to maintain that because it's been a very popular game.
Yes. So as you said, I would assume a lot of the acquisition here was in fact the technology, which a lot of this is very common in business. If you pay attention, businesses acquire other companies a lot of the time for two things: technology and staff. And that's that may be the case here with Rocket League. We don't know, but that's very common, especially in the technology world. Just somebody else made something that you were going to make. It's a lot easier just to buy them and not have to deal with it. And Epic's got that kind of money off of the success of the Unreal Engine and Fortnite and other games that they've worked on in the past. So cool stuff for the folks over at Rocket League, and they'll be part of the Epic family now. So there you go.
Yep. All right. So in other gaming news, at Riot, of course, who makes your favorite game that we that we played for Game of the Week, and the game that was ruining your life, as you say, they had a walkout today, and this is a walkout, just to kind of explain, is based on, it's not based on working conditions and the things that you normally think of. They're upset about the fact that the company is doing arbitration for things that are happening internally with the company. Let's say there's some sort of a conflict, a sexual harassment or whatever it is. You can imagine, I mean, take your pick of whatever problem you would normally go and sue them for.
HR complaints, yeah.
And some sort of HR complaint. They signed a contract at the beginning saying that they will not sue the company. And in there it says they can't. They signed a contract saying they can't sue the company, but they will be allowed to do arbitration.
Mm-hmm. Forced arbitration is the
forced arbitration. So Nick, do you want to explain this, or do you want me to go through it really quick?
So I've talked to two lawyers this afternoon, and a union official that deals with arbitration, because I really wanted to understand this. This is there's 200 people in this walkout. This is a very significant walkout for the video game industry. And our friend Saul Goodman is jumping in as he spends some time in the legal system.
It's binding, not forced. Because forced would be a negative term. Binding
arbitration, whatever. And I will say this right off the bat: I'm not a lawyer. I'm not pretending to be a lawyer. I've asked people that do work in and around this field, and this is my interpretation of it. And I will say right off the bat, shame on Engadget, Kotaku, and all of these other websites for doing such a piss poor job at reporting what actually is going on at Riot. Not a single one of them has. Now, it's funny because they always have inside sources at these companies, but not a single one of them have posted what the actual work agreements were that these employees agreed to when they started working for Riot. Not a single blog, not a single article I could find talked about what these people actually signed up for. It doesn't exist because none of these reporters are doing their freaking jobs. They're just trying to get clicks.
It wouldn't fit. It wouldn't fit the whole thing that they're trying to push, though. Like, they don't. If they had to actually report on what happened, people would say, "Oh, so they did that." Well, that doesn't. Okay,
So
they would understand and not be so upset and be pissed about it.
So here we go. So this is how I understand it the best. Part of the part of the agreement, the contract of employment with Riot Games when you decide to work there is that you cannot sue the company. Everything has to be dealt with arbitration. Now, if you've never heard the term arbitration, arbitration is essentially kind of like a private court session. An arbiter is hired. There's companies that do this. A lot of them are retired judges. They come in. They are an unbiased third party that sits down with the company, the employee. Both sides plead their case to the arbiter, and the arbiter makes their decision. And in a lot of cases, and because we don't have the actual agreements here, we're not sure, but in a lot of cases, that is the end of it. What the company or the arbiter says, we either agree with the company or we agree with the employee, the individual, or there's some type of agreement that needs to be made, and that's the end of it. They cannot
and those are legally binding.
They are, absolutely.
They can take that to court and say, and use that. It is a legally binding decision that both sides have to stick to. So if the decision is favored in the employee side, then they have to, the company itself has to then stay to that decision. They can't turn around and say, all right, we don't want to do this anymore because we lost.
Yeah. So there's been 4 or 5 lawsuits filed against Riot since the beginning of the year, since the start of 2019. According to one of the articles I read, Riot has forced two of those employees into arbitration, meaning forcing them into that private court session, we'll call it for lack of a better term. And the employees at Riot are walking out, and they are demanding that all past, current, and future employees drop the arbitration agreement that they agreed to. Let's be clear with this. The employees, when they got a job offer from Epic, fraudulent slip from our Lord and Saviors, when they agreed to work for Riot, when they agreed on terms, a whole bunch of terms that you agree with. There's an employment contract that you make with the company. They agreed to this forced arbitration. That's what they agreed to. Now they're pissed off about that, and so they're walking out of Riot over this. And it's just stupid. And nobody is reporting the facts of the story, that every single one of these 200 employees agreed to this when they worked. If they didn't like the forced arbitration that they agreed to, they shouldn't have taken the job with Riot in the first place. That's what this comes down to. Now, I don't know all of the details on these stories because nobody is reporting them. The cases are, there's no information about the cases. Nobody has released the actual employment agreement that they signed upon. Now, there are things that the EEOC, which is the Equal Opportunity Employment or a group in the United States at least, requires. You cannot discriminate against somebody based on their gender. There's a whole bunch of protected classes. You cannot discriminate against people on that. An arbitration agreement is irrelevant to that. You are required, from what I understand, talking to a couple of attorneys this afternoon, you are required to first go forth, and if it's some type of discriminatory thing that is protected under the EEOC, you are required to go, and I don't remember what the term was that he used. You are required to go and pursue that avenue first. Brian, I'm being discriminated based on the color of my skin. You are required to go and do that first. And now that could shuffle up depending on what now goes on with some of this arbitration stuff. Unfortunately, there's really not a whole lot of information, but I think the moral of the story here is don't agree to a contract with a company and then walk out because you don't agree with the contract. This was not forced on employees once they already worked there. Every single one of the people that works there agreed to this
during the signing on.
It was then, and they didn't necessarily sign onto it. This is the terms of you working at our company. You can do this. You can't do this. They all said.
But see, when you accept that contract, they send you a contract saying, here is all the paperwork, if you want to be employed here. And part of the issue is people don't read that. They skim through it, or they say, okay, that's fine. And they sign. Though this is in there. I mean, a very similar thing is when I play hockey, I have to sign a piece of paper that says, if I get hurt, I'm not going to sue the organization. I'm not going to sue the rink.
You can't sue.
I can't sue them because if anybody falls down and breaks their leg, they're going to say, oh, it was too slick, right? So you could say anything and you could sue somebody for that. I agree. Because I read the contract, I know that if I get hurt, you know what? I'm going to have to deal with it with my own insurance, and I'm going to have to get it fixed and not sue them and not get money from the rink. I understand that because I read the contract. Just because, if I didn't read the contract, it doesn't give me the right to get mad after the fact and say, you don't have the right to do this. You know what? They do have the right to do that. Whether or not I understand that is fine. It doesn't matter. And I think here, if they would have read the contract, would have put it in front of a lawyer, they would have understood it, and there would be no argument here.
The big concern that I have here, and we're not going to take this into a political conversation, that's just not what we do here on this program, but this is very important for the video game industry, because as Brian will talk about here in a little while, there's lots of claims, and there's a lot of people pushing forward this idea of a video game union, and all of these video game designers and developers unionizing, and we'll cover that here in a couple of minutes. But a lot of the people tweeting and talking about this clearly don't understand what is going on. For example, Slasher on Twitter, who's very popular on Twitter talking about video game news, says that Riot employees are walking out today to protest against senior leadership's use of forced arbitration in cases sexual harassment and discrimination. That's misleading. The company in every single case will force arbitration.
They're acting like they're cherry picking the specific instances where they're going to do arbitration. No,
it's every case. Any lawsuit against the company, any suit against the company is dealt with in arbitration. Anything. You break your leg, anything that you would you can't sue the company. So anything that you would sue the company over needs to be dealt with in arbitration. Not just sexual harassment, not just discrimination in the workplace. Every single thing that needs to be dealt with in some type of legal system needs to be done in arbitration. So it's being cherry picked by these I don't even know what you'd call these people. They're not reporters. They're not journalists. They're just making stuff up and trying to fit it into some type of narrative, and it's wrong. And it's clear to me that these freaking employees at Riot don't know what the hell they're talking about, because they're tweeting that they deserve to work at a place where they feel safe and welcome. Find a new freaking job if you don't like the terms, but you agreed to them. Nobody held a gun to your head and said, sign this work contract or we're going to blow your brains all over the wall. Nobody said that. They all agreed to work at Epic, probably because Epic pays well.
Not Epic.
Or excuse me, Riot. Probably because Riot pays well, right?
She's going to love that.
Because Riot pays well. That's what they agreed to. Nobody forced them. Well, so that's what's very frustrating about this is this didn't come out of thin air. Every single employee agreed to this. Brian, if you sent me some contract tomorrow, Nick, if you want to continue doing infection and this, that, and this, I'd say go pound sand, Brian. I don't want to do it. But I'm not going to sign some contract with you and then get pissed off when you try to enforce it on me. And that's what they're doing, folks. They're enforcing the contract that they have with every single one of their employees. So take it or leave it. That's at least what we understand at this point in time. That's and I'm not up on all the legal stuff. I'm not a lawyer, but from what I understand, that is the current situation. As more information comes out, because again, nobody is reporting actual facts about this. As those things come out, I would look forward to continuing this conversation. But it's essentially a lot of hype and misleading. Every single one of these tweets on here is misleading people.
I think what a lot of this is pushing towards is the whole unionization. That seems to be. Because, I mean, and it's not just the more liberal areas doing it. I mean, one popular YouTuber, The Quartering, he goes through and he's pushing for unionization as well, which is totally opposite of all the other things he usually says. And so to me, that's very strange. It seems like that's kind of the whatever in the background that is being pushed. And I think a lot of people don't understand that if unionization happens, the person who's going to be affected is the person purchasing the games, all of us, the ones
consumer.
who go out and are consumers of all these products. These employees are then going to be able to make demands. I mean, if you look at the audio industry in the United States, it was almost destroyed by unions because it became so expensive to make, and it's incredibly expensive to make a car, that they end up shipping a lot of these things overseas because it's cheaper to make a car there and they can make a better car for less. Well, we'll have the exact same thing happen in the United States if we start getting really picky, saying I want all these rights as a, and we already have rights as employees.
The
I mean, in the United
EEOC
States,
does that.
we do have rights, but if they want specialized rights to say, well, we don't have to work this many hours, we don't have to, it's going to drastically change how the video game industry works. And so my concern is that the cost is then going to be passed, because it's going to become much more expensive to produce a video game, which will the cost will be passed on to us. It'll be much more difficult for them to do crunch time, because you know how the video game industry is they start meeting their deadline, they start pushing harder and harder, and then they do a big crunch at the end. It will make it to where that crunch doesn't happen. And you could say, all right, well, then they'll just push out their deadlines. Well, that probably won't happen. They'll just release games that aren't quite finished, rather than push the cost out even farther. So I think it will pay for it in ways that we don't want. And I really don't think that it's going to be a benefit, because I think they'll just decide, well, we'll make all these overseas, because there's already people can develop. They develop in Europe. They can develop in Canada. It's very difficult for us to compete in the industry, because you can do this from almost anywhere. You don't have to be in a specific place, and people are willing to move to get a decent job. So that is my concern, is that it will cripple the industry more than it will help it. And here, these people are still being heard. It's not like if they could choose to work somewhere else. They do not have to work at this company. If you want to go find a company that says, you know what, we don't do arbitration, that's not in the contract.
Plenty of companies that do that.
There's plenty of companies that do that. You could go and work for one of those companies. It's not an industry. It is an industry standard, in that pretty much all these major companies do this because this is what makes sense. Whenever you hear, like on the news, you say it was settled out, out of court. What do you think that is?
A lot of
all these things you're like, oh, this was settled out of court. And you know what that allowed? That allowed that not to be drudged up and painted all over the news everywhere.
Oops.
Windows update.
No, EM client. Probably should have closed out of my email client. So there's a couple of factors to this. Saul mentioned, he said, because the jury system can be dumb, randoms on the street have all sorts of crazy ideas about verdicts. The goal with arbitrate here, and the concern with arbitration that that was voiced to me this afternoon, is that there is this notion, and I don't know, I've never been part of any type of arbitration, but the concern from some people is that the arbiters in a lot of cases are pro company because they are being paid by the company, and just in general they are hired by companies. They get repeat business from companies. That's the claim. These people are third party independents. So is there some legitimacy to that? Maybe, but judges are the same way. I mean, they're people. They have opinions and stances on things. So you could make the argument that a judge you could argue that a judge would be pro company if this was to go into a regular, regular legal system. So the whole situation is just very odd. These people are just, I really don't understand it, Brian. I'm trying to understand. They're saying that, good luck to all the brave and strong folks at Riot participating in the walkout. You stand for something better for everyone at your studio and beyond. It's not. It's not. You really don't. Like that. Here's one thing. It just doesn't make any sense.
Here's one thing that PH had posted, that in their response to some of this, it says, as soon as litigation is resolved, we will give all new rioters the choice to opt out of mandatory arbitration for individual sexual harassment and sexual assault claims. That for me is that makes sense. I mean, if they want to put a clause in there, and this is Riot's choice to do, saying, all right, in this particular case, we will not require, but that still doesn't make any sense. You're saying, all right, here's one thing that you can sue us over. Can't sue us over anything else. But in this, I mean, why not say, well, if there's arbitration, you just have to notify and say that this happened in the background. Why does it need to go to court itself? Because usually that's an embarrassment for the person. Maybe someone, was if they were sexually assaulted, do they want that in the courts?
Well,
I mean, you're making some things that's very public.
This isn't
Maybe
mandatory.
they don't want it to be.
It's not mandatory though. It's saying you can.
This will be opt-in, but the thing is you're opting in or out when you're hired on. You're not given the choice at the time of if it happened.
But again, Brian, you are making the decision, and that's what I find so frustrating about this whole case is you, the employee, are making the decision. And if this mandatory or forced arbitration is a deal breaker, then go find somewhere else to work. I just really don't understand it. And the other argument I would make, Brian, is that with the video game industry being as hot as it is right now, and so many developers, people fresh out of school interested in development, and video games in general being such a popular thing, so many people getting into game development, I think it's very stupid to walk out of your company, because Riot, from what I understand, would have full legal recourse to fire every single one of those people for walking out. Yeah. There's no union. They legally could fire every single one of them. And they won't, of course, but they could.
I think they're bending over backwards for them. And if you look, they've already said, all right, well, this is all done. We're going to give you people options to opt out of this. And in Saul, who is an attorney, I mean, he has his legal license. He says this is for keeping secrets and keeping emotions out of verdicts, because, and he's right. He's saying jury see a crying young lady, and that they're going to generally
old white man manager makes a whole bunch of money, who's evil.
and it's not based on what actually happened at that point. It's based on who is the most likely you can sympathize with, right? Not based on what actually happened. And I think that is the issue, is with the arbiter, they're going to look at the facts. And if the police, if it's a crime and the police need to get involved,
like sexual assault,
this doesn't limit that. It's not like you can't go to the police. If you are sexually assaulted, you can go to the police for that.
Well, it's still a crime. I mean, this is just,
it's a crime.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
This is purely based on everything outside of that.
And this is, again, with the company. Brian, if somebody sexually assaults you, you can do whatever you want to them individually. Yeah. This is against, this is you, the employee, going after, what is it, Riot Games, LLC, or something like that. This is you going after Riot Games. You can still do whatever you want to somebody personally. Now, the concern you'd run into is if you were assaulted or harassed on work grounds and work property, it may need to be dealt with in arbitration because it took place at Riot. Now, that would be very situation dependent, but nevertheless, that's where we are right now. It's just a lot of hysteria over, and I'm not going to say nothing, but it's just a lot of hysteria. I mean,
it's feel good reporting. They're reporting on something saying, hey, look, we're making a change, but really they're not looking at the actual details, because just like what Saul said, you get look at the poor, you can't say, okay, well, what actually happened? You have to say, oh, always believe this person. Okay, well, you don't know that what they're saying is true. We've seen plenty of cases where people will make something up because they're mad at somebody. They'll make something up because they don't agree with whatever else happened. That is not unheard of. So there's a reason that people have to either go to court or do this, and you just don't automatically believe the person who's making a claim. And that this is to make it to where it just doesn't become a circus, because someone can turn around and say, if you don't give me what I want, I'm going to sue you and make this public. That then becomes the leverage, that becomes the tool, that is what becomes forcing a company to then say, all right, well, we don't want this to become a big deal, even though we don't think it really happened. They don't want to turn around and and fight it, because that'll make it a big public debacle. And the person who's making this claim knows that it's worth it for them to settle and just to bend to what they want, and it makes them susceptible to unfair type of manipulation. And that is my concern, is that it becomes a very real thing when you don't do arbitration. With arbitration, that's that all those emotions and that leverage is taken out. It's purely based on what happened, not based on how embarrassing it can be for the company.
All of the comments about these people being brave, these people are idiots. They agreed to something, and now they're pissed off at it because at the time, they didn't care because they wanted the job. You're an idiot.
Yeah.
You agreed to something, and now you've got to live with the consequences. You're not brave. And these tweets, it should be illegal to make people sign. Oh, then go to law school and get your law degree. But you're a freaking video game developer. You're a sound designer for a video game company. You're not a goddamn lawyer. Shut up. You signed this agreement. You made your bed, now you got to sleep in it. I mean, that's just how it works, Brian.
Well,
Brian, what happens?
What
happens if you sign a contract with somebody and then don't pay them? What happens, Brian?
Well, you get sued. I mean, that's
you go.
What happens.
You have to deal with the consequences of your actions.
Yep.
That's what this is, folks. I'm sorry. Find another job. Find another company to work for. Go find somewhere else to do whatever you do. Nobody's holding a gun to these people's heads. They willingly signed up for it.
Yep.
So, but your decision. I didn't make the decision for you. Brian didn't make the decision for you. You did yourself. You decided, I want to work for Riot because they're going to pay me X amount of dollars a month or a year to work here. That's good money. I can live on that money. I can have a family on that money. I can pay my rent on that money. You made that decision. So,
I mean, they shouldn't be saying this is unfair. What they should be saying is, hey, we don't like this in our contract. We as a group just want you to change this. I mean, change this one thing, in which they're they're making it outside of that. I mean, the thing is, they're growing it in all these articles to be something different than that. All they're wanting is a renegotiation, which that's fine. What they really should be doing is saying, this is a practice that we don't agree with, and we want to bring attention to it. I mean, word it like that. We just want to bring attention to this is something that happens in the industry or happens in business, and we want that to change. But this has all been twisted to a whole
fairness,
emotional level. Yeah, it's been brought to emotional level rather than we would like our contracts renegotiated. They're not saying it in that way. They're acting like they're victims. No, they're not victims. They're upset about something in their contract that they don't enjoy that they signed. It's just weird that it's turned to this whole emotional level of, poor these people. Someone's getting victimized. Well, you don't know that. You don't know what happened in the case. I mean, we don't know anything because it's been dealt with in a private manner. I'd rather hear from the people that it happened to. They feel like that whatever happened in the case, they feel like it was unfair. I mean, is that the case?
I don't know, Brian. This is not what bravery looks like. I'm sorry. I don't know any of these people personally, but I mean, this is just pathetic. Go find somewhere else to work. I mean, it's just so stupid. So we'll leave it there. But I mean, that's the sad. Riot should fire all these people and say, okay, well, but they won't. They're going to bend over backwards and do whatever, which is fine. That's their decision.
But Riot's always done that. Riot is an incredibly progressive company, whether you think that's good or bad. There's no way to. I can't talk about it here.
Yeah,
but
it's
an incredibly progressive company, and it's just weird that it's coming. This is coming from this company, with one that has bent over backwards for their employees, and it's strange to me.
Could you imagine being in a position where you're begging for sympathy because of your job from people on Twitter? I mean, that's what this is. I mean, looking at these tweets, that's what these people are doing. You're begging for sympathy. You have a full-time job. I mean, you have a full-time job making a video game. It's something clearly you wanted to do. And then you're going to cry on social media about woe is me. Get lost. It's just so stupid. If you don't, I mean, have some damn self-responsibility. It's that simple.
Well,
I know, easier said than done. I've heard it a million times, but it's pathetic. If I don't like where I work, I'll change it. Brian didn't like, we talked about this last week, Brian. You didn't like what you were doing in your career. What did you do? Bitch and moan about it on Twitter? No, you decided.
I did something different.
You're going to go back to school. I mean, it's common sense. So that's.
So, and just I want to do some quick clarification because all these people saying it's unfair. First of all, Riot pays all the costs of the whole thing.
Yep.
All the arbitration costs.
Yep.
Both parties agree on the person that's going to be doing the arbitration.
Yep.
It's not
arbiter.
that Riot saying here's who it's going to be. The arbiter is. It's not Riot saying who it's going to be. They both agree to one person. Either one can reject. They don't have to choose. Whatever the other one's choosing. Also, the plaintiff, the person, they can hire whatever lawyer they want.
Yep.
They can have any lawyer. Another thing is there's no confidentiality clause. So I don't know what they can still talk about it. So I'm still not sure where.
I don't know what they want.
Big secret is. It's just, and it doesn't limit damages. So legally, they're not having a limit on the amount they can go after them for. They can still talk about it after the fact. They can hire their own lawyer. They can choose the person. Unlike a judge in court, you can't go and choose your judge. They can actually be a part of choosing who's going to make the decision. It's the strangest thing to me that they're acting like this is such a horrible thing.
Well, and that's kind of why I said early on when we started this conversation is I really don't think a lot of the people in this walkout really understand what they're walking out against. Because originally, before I knew any of this information, I was intrigued, and now that I have talked to people and read up about how this whole process works, I really don't understand what these people want. I mean, I understand what they want, but I don't. Nobody is.
It's not going to be more fair for them.
No,
I don't know what they're
point.
expecting to be better. This is actually one of the most fair things that could happen to them through the whole process. I mean, they're having more control over the whole process than they do with being in court.
So, there you go. If you've got some more information on this, or somebody at Riot, I mean, I'm genuinely interested in this story because, as you said, Brian, earlier, there's a push here by, I closed out of the story, some Gamers Unite or something like that, which is a group that is pushing for the unionization of video game developers and people that work in the industry. This will absolutely, unequivocally, without a doubt, have major impacts on us, the consumers, and what we...
It'll make it almost impossible to get a job here. That's what'll happen.
Possibly.
As an in-game development, because all the studios will go somewhere else. So it would not make financial sense to go to a place where they're really restricted. They'll go to a place where it's more free. And
Saul's pointing out, he says one of the bad parts, I'd say, is that there's no appeal mechanism if the arbitration judge gets it wrong. And so
that goes two ways.
Absolutely, it goes two ways.
You don't know which side that's going to go towards. I mean,
it's very situational.
It could be unfair to the employer, and it may not go the way that the employer wanted, and even though it should have, or it may go the way of the employee. And either way, you accept that. You accept that going into it and accepting that person to be over it.
Yeah.
And oversee it.
All right. Well, hopefully enjoyed that. Kind of as a firebomb. PH saying they're being silenced. Oh, yeah, I know. I don't really know what.
But the thing is, there's no confidentiality clause.
No,
I mean, I keep coming back to that. They can talk about it. There's nothing silencing them.
That's why I said it's stupid. That's why I said they're stupid, because they clearly don't understand what's going on. Okay, we need to move on. We've got a lot of stuff to get into. Yep. But yes, I'd like to hear from you about this. Send us a tweet, email us, contact@Infection Podcast. Hit Brian or I up on Discord, or add us to a group chat or whatever. Do whatever. Get in touch with us. I'm really interested in this because this will have an impact on you and I and the games that we like to play. So, and there's links and articles and whatnot in our show notes on infectionpodcast.com. If I got anything wrong, I'm sorry. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not pretending to be one. All right, Brian, let's get some survival news up here. Where do you want to start?
Well, how about we do The Long Dark? Because that is one of the most survival-y games.
Survivalist.
That has ever been survivaled. It is They actually have a video, and it's a somewhat long video, so I guess it could give you a chance to get a drink, but it is informative the whole way through. It's not like one of these where you have 10 minutes of music. And this one goes through, and they've added a lot of features and changed a lot of things with this new 1.48 that they've released.
Okay.
And so I think it would be good just to go through it, because it's a very informative video that actually shows you all the new content. So.
All right. Sounds good.
Hello everyone, this is Raphael, the creative director for The Lone Dark. I'm excited to share more details about our latest update to survival mode. We're calling this one Steadfast Ranger. For those players who have been following our development for a while, you know our updates typically include a number of new features and improvements to existing gameplay tools. We try to go back to mechanics and improve upon them, while also adding new elements to the toolbox, giving you more choices for how to survive. The game has become huge and complex with so many overlapping systems, so we find this incremental approach lets us slowly build up the game on all sides, without fundamentally breaking anything. And each survival update also tends to lay another brick in the foundation of gameplay you'll experience in the upcoming episodes of Wintermute, our story mode. The first thing we've fixed in this update is the spraying system. A much hated feature in our game, sprayings have received a full overhaul, both on the systems and presentation levels. We've added a HUD element that warns you when you're walking on steep surfaces that could result in getting a sprain, while also increasing the slope angle that you need before you risk getting one. These should help clarify what kind of behaviors may lead to sprains so that you better understand the risks you're taking. The result should be far fewer sprains, but the ones you end up with will hopefully make more sense. We've also changed the sprain affliction itself to remove the insta-heal nature of the previous iteration. We've now split the sprain into two effects, a limp and pain. The pain affliction introduces a kind of pulsing visual effect to the screen, which is meant to be noticeable but not debilitating. It's treated with painkillers. The limp prevents you from sprinting and also adds a camera movement and pain voiceover to help sell the effect. It's treated with a bandage. So sprains should be more rare now, but when you get them, are harder to treat and have more of a gameplay impact. Remember that you can still get sprains from struggles and falls, and if the limp camera animation bothers you, you can always use the dampen camera motions option in the accessibility features to turn it off without removing the other gameplay penalties. We've expanded the list of natural remedies in the game by adding birch bark tea. You can collect birch bark, typically found near birch trees, prepare it in the crafting menu, and then brew the tea like you would any other hot drink. The birch bark tea has a slow-acting condition restore effect. Keep in mind the buffs don't stack, so think of birch bark tea as part of an ongoing condition maintenance regimen, and less like a magic health pack. Like most things in the Lone Dark, there are no quick fix solutions. It's only through careful planning and maintenance that you can hope to survive over the long term. Sometimes exhaustion sets in and throws your whole day's survival plans into chaos. We've all been in those situations where we need a stamina boost for that final stretch of sprinting or the last few meters of that rope climb up Timberwolf Mountain. And you can't always just drop whatever you're doing to take a little nap. As of this update, keep your eyes open for the new energy drink, something that can boost your stamina and reduce your fatigue temporarily when you're in those tricky situations. Just keep in mind that you might suffer a bit of a headache afterwards. Rifle aiming has been pretty miserable for a while, so we thought it was high time that we fixed it. We updated the model and fixed the aim mode, which should help you fire more accurately and better understand your hits and misses. When you're in top condition, you should be able to hit your targets much more reliably than before. At the same time, the Long Dark is not a shooter. We just use shooting as part of your overall survival toolbox. So we asked ourselves how we could make our survival gameplay a more integral part of our rifle shooting gameplay. What we came up with is having your various external conditions directly impact your ability to aim and shoot successfully. We've replaced the circular sway animation with a procedural aim animation that is affected by your breathing, your cold, and your fatigue levels. If you come in off a sprint and are breathing heavily, you'll notice this heavy breathing makes your aiming much more of a challenge. The solution is to wait for your breath to calm down before lining up the shot. If you're too cold, you'll begin to shiver, which also makes it harder to aim. So make sure you dress appropriately when going out on a hunting trip, or consider making short excursions from the warmth and protection of a campfire or interior shelter. Aim mode now has its own stamina meter, which means you can't just hold in a fixed aim mode forever. You have a window of time to take your shot in before you will need to reset it. This aim stamina is impacted by how fatigued you are. And of course, all three of these factors compound each other. The end result is that if you want to hunt successfully, you need to prepare for it. Get in your top condition, rest up, get warm, and plan out your hunting excursions. All these effects are reduced as you gain rifle skill, And keep in mind you might not experience the full spectrum of these system changes if you've already maxed out your rifle skill before. As always, I recommend you start a new survival run so that you can try these new features out in a fresh game. Of course, unpredictability is a huge part of what makes the Long Dark compelling. You can't always rest and warm yourself up before that surprise wolf attack, and the rifle isn't always the most responsive defensive firearm. It's really designed more to be used as a long-range hunting tool. That's why we've added a new firearm to the game, the revolver. Unlike the rifle, the revolver is a defensive firearm. That's not to say you can't use it to hunt rabbits and even wolves if necessary, but that's not what it's good at. It's good at deterring hostile wildlife. The revolver has a lower powered shot, but ammunition is more abundant. It can be fired less accurately from the hip as a quick strafing reaction shot from when you're caught by surprise. It can also be fired in an in mode where you are holding your ground. You sacrifice mobility for accuracy. The revolver has a dedicated skill whose progression is separate from the rifle skill. We've also added the revolver to the struggle weapon picker. You can use the revolver as a melee weapon to try to fight off an attacking wolf, and if you have loaded ammunition, you can even take a shot if you progress far enough in the struggle. The shot may or may not kill the wolf, but it will definitely scare it off. The revolver is only the second real firearm we've added to the Long Dark, and we don't really have plans to add more at this point. It's always been my fear that players would begin to run around the world of the Long Dark with a gun in hand, making it feel more like a traditional shooter. But in any case, I think the revolver and the rifle both have clear roles in the survival sandbox, and we hope you develop new and compelling strategies by balancing these tools and their trade-offs against the other things you choose to carry around with you. And if you're an Interloper regular, have no fear. We've excluded revolver spawns from Interloper games, so they will continue to be as punishingly hardcore as you'd like them to be. Speaking of Interloper, we've added a small thing that might be really meaningful for you players, as well as for anyone who is in the early or late game and finds themselves with either an abundance of cloth or a real lack of head and hand coverings. We've added improvised cloth wraps for the head and hand slots. You can harvest cloth from a variety of places in the world, curtains, blankets, other clothing, and use it to craft simple head or hand wraps, which will help take the chill off and probably prevent frostbite from forming in those areas. Sometimes it's the small things that count. As always, this update comes with a host of smaller quality of life improvements and bug fixes, as well as these larger new features. We've fixed dozens of bugs, added an improved weak ice indicator, updated the bow and arrow models, and added some blur to the aim camera there so it matches the more focused view you now get with a rifle and revolver. We've smoothed out some of the wildlife animations so they look better when moving through the world or when they are running right at you. And we didn't only touch survival mode with this update, we've also taken a lot of player feedback on Redux to heart and improved the Bear Spear missions in Episode 2, making the bear encounters more forgiving, making the Bear Spear gameplay more intuitive, and streamlining the final bear cave encounter so that it's not as frustrating. We've also added an accessible struggle option in the accessibility settings, which lets players toggle between the current tap to win struggle approach to instead a hold to win option. This should make Episode 2 and the rest of the game much more survivable for anyone who finds the rapid tapping or button mashing action to be unfairly challenging. The accessible struggle option picks a middle of the road result in the struggle, which means that sometimes you'll get a better result if you tap to win, but a better result isn't guaranteed. This way, neither approach is more optimal from a gameplay standpoint. Use the approach you feel most comfortable with. Accessible struggle doesn't make the game easier, it just levels the playing field for those who can't make the tapping action work. As always, we hope you enjoy the latest update to the Long Dark survival mode. These updates are free to all our players, so all you have to do is make sure you have the most updated version of the game, and you too can play this content immediately. If you run into any bugs when playing the latest update, please visit hinterlandgames.com/support and log a ticket, and our support team will get back to you as quickly as possible. And believe it or not, this will get you help sooner than logging a negative user review because of a bug you encounter. Please remember that the people behind the Long Dark are trying to make the best experience we can for you, and while we work hard to make the game as bug-free as possible, we don't always catch them all. What we will do is always strive to fix any issues that arise as quickly as we can, and using the support portal really helps us to accomplish that for you. If you have any feedback or just want to discuss this update with other players like you, please join the official community at hinterlandforums.com, where membership lets you participate in the weekly Melton Mailbag feature, amongst other things, and lets you share your love of the Long Dark with one of the best communities in games today. Thanks for listening, and enjoy your time in the quiet apocalypse.
All right. Very good video by the folks over there at Long Dark. Very informative. Lots of information in there. What's your takeaway, Brian?
Well, so first of all, I mean, if you look at The Long Dark, it is, as I said, one of the most hardcore survival games that there are. And I think that they're trying to add things to the game without keeping that kind of hardcore, without losing that hardcore feeling that it has. I mean, he went into detail about how the revolver, they're concerned that people will make it feel like it's not quite as hard by having the revolver in there. So they give you options to limit it. And I think that's something that they've really focused on, is how do we keep that game that just, you're going to die. I mean, it's one of the only survival games that I don't know that you can actually get away with not dying. I don't think you can in this game. And so that's one thing I really enjoy about it, though, is it doesn't become a game of, okay, well, just what else can I do? It's an actual game of how long can I live? And it's a single player. So if you're looking for a multiplayer Rust type of a game, this is not it. But if you want to challenge yourself and have a game that you can continue kind of setting goals for yourself of, all right, I'm going to try to go and do this time. I'm going to try to last a certain amount of time. This is the kind of game that you may enjoy. And it's actually on sale I think it's like $7 right now.
Wow.
On Steam.
That's a good price.
I'm not sure. It may be on Humble Bundle as well. But it is on sale right now. So if you want to go, so Steam is the cheapest. I think it's not on sale on Humble Bundle, but it is currently $7.49, 75% off. So it's definitely a good one to pick up for that price.
Awesome. All right, so let's talk about Miscreated, Brian. They had actually a pretty significant update here.
Yeah.
I think it's like 1.1.0 or something like that.
1.1.0, yep.
Okay, so I'm spot on with that. 1.1.0. And a lot of it is some quality of life stuff, but they've also made some significant changes to things that they believe will be significant changes to base building and things like that. I do find it funny here. It says, before providing feedback on the changes, please test the game and then provide feedback.
Oh, no. I think I know why they put that in there.
So, what are you going to do? So we'll provide some feedback based on the text without playing it. But this is their overview. It says this update.
At least we got written into the patch notes.
It says this update has a lot of quality of life improvements in it. Many of them are based on players' feedback. It also has a lot of new changes to the crafting, base building, and vehicle systems, which I would argue are three of the biggest issues that Miscreated currently has. Over time, we will add, remove, tweak features as needed to improve the gameplay. This one is interesting, Brian. This one kind of towards you. Some of these changes are to explore a faster gameplay style that balances the crafting and raiding mechanics. Hallelujah. They should have explored this 2 years ago. I'm so excited that they're now moving in this direction, because this is what we've been talking about for freaking 4 years now.
Well, and that was my response. That was my exact response to him saying, you need to test this. I remember after that tweet, that was my exact response of, how am I supposed to test it when it takes me how many hours to even get to that point?
16 hours.
It's like I have to play all week, and then just to be able to even get to that point where I can test it. And that's not realistic. I mean, this isn't the only game that I'm playing, and I can't do that. And so hopefully this will be something that allows for that. I really want them to go in and rework the server system to where we can accelerate it ourselves. So and really make it to where we can do a test. Say, hey, I want to test this specific thing that you've added, and get it to the point where we have that and it's ready to test.
Agreed. So here, I'm just going to go over some of the stuff here. So they made some localization changes, which aren't super important for most people. But for modding, this is what they've added. They've added 12 placeholder vehicle names, and these were added so that modders can use these to add new vehicles into the game, so they don't have to replace existing vehicles. Meaning, previously
that's an engine limitation.
Previously, to add a new vehicle, you would have to essentially overwrite an old vehicle to add your modified vehicle. But they've now added 12 slots for you to add vehicles that you want.
So CryEngine must limit them and not allow them to add new objects. They must have to have like existing ones that you're then changing the reference to something else for.
Now, let me say, this might have something to do more with licensing than it does actually the engine itself, because if I remember from when we originally had this conversation, their license is incredibly strict on what they allow players to do. So this is
especially with the editor.
Yes, exactly.
It could be that because the part of the issue is for you to really get into modding, you have to be able to have a license to the editor, which means you're paying just to be able to access the editor. And so maybe they made it more simple to where you could use some sort of a free tool. And I mean, it's kind of hard to say. I can understand that they are trying to work around some of these limitations of the engine and the licensing. There are also probably some strict limitations they have with CryEngine, which isn't, from what I can tell, the most flexible system. I mean, just based on the struggles that Miscreated has had over the years.
Yeah.
And you're seeing them try to overcome engine issues. It's not incredibly flexible. So hopefully they're able to work around it.
Now let's get into some gameplay things. When a base door is opened or closed, the action menu will refresh to show the correct action. So if it's closed, it will and you open it, it will refresh to close. It'll go back and forth. So that is something that will now be dynamic and change. They fixed an issue where exploding items on the ground, not causing damage or not having any physical damage, forces generated. So essentially the item exploding wasn't causing any damage because it was colliding with the ground, presumably. A message is now displayed when a player consumes the most harmful items in the game, and they say obviously read things before it. It'll show a level of contamination and things like that. They added another game.log log file entry when a player gets disconnected to help you troubleshoot potential issues. That would go towards the server administrator side.
Or maybe find people that are going and disconnecting rather than get into a fight too. That would be another thing that they're possibly
what is that
trying
called?
to
There's
allow
a term
people
for that.
Battle logging.
Battle logging.
Battle logging.
Yep. Yeah, I haven't heard that term in forever. Battle logging. Filter out any item context menu actions that cannot be used on the player's target. So they've got a whole bunch of item actions that you can use, but certain objects can't be, for example, opened. They can only be interacted with. They're getting rid of that duplicitous stuff that's on the menu.
So you're not trying to click or do something that isn't capable of doing.
Open on a radio. I mean, you would never, you can't open it. It's use it, interact with it. So they're working on that. Harvesting from rocks now has a chance to return the new pyrite, which is, I guess, a new mineral material. Item. Possible FPS improvements for some systems because of a system timer optimization. So hopefully you'll get some FPS bumps with that. Let's talk about vehicles now. Bicycles and dirt bikes will no longer spawn in the game, but they are left in the game files in case modders want to re-enable them. The bicycles were really cool, which I liked, and I didn't really use the dirt bikes, but those two items are going to no longer, so you're not going to find bicycles just laying in piles of scrap. Now, I will say the bicycles were incredibly buggy. When they went down on the ground, they were very hard to try to interact with, to pick back up and get back on. Real pain in the ass, but they did that. So what they have done, in the other hand, and Brian, you talked about this 8 months ago, 2-axis vehicles in CryEngine are very complicated, and it appears that level of complication has reached a point because all bicycle and dirt bike spawns will be replaced with quad bikes, 4-wheel ATVs, essentially. So
plus their physics, I think they were really struggling. So one of our biggest things that we ran into last time we played, the bikes would fall over on their side
when you got off
and then you wouldn't be able to interact with them. I mean, I remember you and I both, we were just sitting there and I was running and jumping on the bike and I was doing everything I could just to try to get it to move a little bit so that I could get back onto it. And it did work once in a while, but there would be a lot of times, the bike fell over on its side. All right, well, can't use that bike.
We were just ramming it with different objects to try to get it to collide with something else and pop back up. So it appears that they just were unable to get those working the way they wanted. So this is a good fix. They've added a new type of vehicle that hopefully will work out for people.
Not 2-wheeled ones, yeah.
Yes, and they say if you already have a dirt bike or bicycle in the game, it will remain until it gets destroyed or is removed for lack of use. It'll be despawned over time. Then they talk about stability. All quad bikes, tractors and jet skis will despawn after not being used for 6 hours, which is
I think this is good.
It's very good because this is the
Hoarding.
problem we've had. We used to hoard, damn it. We used to have all of these free. We used to. I must have a picture somewhere. We used to have 15 vehicles in our base, and we would just hoard them for no apparent reason, just because we wanted them, and it was very stupid. This is going against that now. This is going to 6 hours is a very short amount of time. You go to bed, your vehicle's going to be despawned when you wake up. So they've done that, which I think is a huge change. And
I want to do the thank Battery Included for the 1,000 bits.
And he puts a little note with that. He says, I've watched your stream for quite some time and wanted to donate bits to show some love for the stream. We really do appreciate it. All that stuff, the bits, the Twitch Prime, the Humble Bundle, the Amazon, all that stuff's going to help pay for Airbnbs and stuff out at PAX West and equipment. We need to buy we need to get a new tripod and probably a wireless mic kit and some other cool stuff for that. So we do appreciate it, Battery Included. Thank you for joining us here live. So they did that for the again, that is not the cars, not cars and whatnot, but for these are the easy vehicle. Well, the quad is really the easy vehicle to get, the noob vehicle. So they've done that.
And part of I wonder if this is going to lean towards them doing that with the trucks, because right now people will use trucks as storage. They'll drive them to the corners of the map, fill them with stuff, and that's like a portable storage area.
Yeah.
And the downside of that is there's that many less that are in the world. They then don't spawn just like they did in H1Z1. We can make it so that half of the map never spawned a vehicle because we had them. And if we could run around to other people's bases and be like, all right, we destroyed that vehicle. Okay, that one's now going to spawn somewhere on the map. Let's go find it. That made it for your casual player. They would never see a vehicle because we knew exactly where all of them were.
Yeah.
And I think that this makes for the casual player much less enjoyable. I mean, for us, we loved it because we were controlling and making everyone's life miserable.
It's fun to have
for people
16 vehicles whenever you want it.
It's fun to be the haves and not to be the have-nots.
Yeah.
And so I think that this is something where they don't have a lot of players at the moment, right? I mean, their player counts are low. I'm not going to say the numbers, but the thing is they need to be making this as accommodating as possible for the new player or the casual player, because if it's too hardcore, you only will have a small group of people playing it, and the rest of them will be like, you know what, I go in there and I don't feel like I'm getting anything done, or I can never get anything.
Great step. Very good step in the right direction with this. They now say with the quad bike chains, it should be a lot easier to find quad bikes and to use them. There are 19 now in the game to be used. So there are 19 spawn points across the map for these quad bikes. Now, vehicles in general have general inventory slots. They now have a maximum of 5 slots, which was reduced from 10. So they've cut vehicle storage in half, Brian, which goes to your point that you just made, is people just stock up things in the vehicle. 10 storage spots doesn't sound like a lot, but it is in Miscreated.
In Miscreated,
it's a lot.
It's like a base.
Yeah, essentially is a base. So this is a good and a bad thing. This will again cut down on hoarding, and also, Brian, this is the important part. You will stop picking up crap because you can throw it in a vehicle. You just leave stuff on the ground or just dump things. Leave them in spawn points because I don't need another canteen or another water bottle or whatever. We don't have a place to put it. So that's one of these ways that they're trying to, I think, make the game a little bit quicker. Let's move over to items. They added a whole bunch of new stuff or modified a whole bunch of new stuff, but they've added craftable furnaces for bases. You can now smelt rock and cook items and has a 10-slot inventory. They've also added.
So there's another 10. That's another 10 spots in your base.
That's a persistent. It says it has a generic 10-slot persistent inventory. I don't know what that means. I mean, I know what that means, but I don't know what it means.
It's just it's like a storage chest. It will if let's say you log out, they will never just leave.
Okay.
If the server restarts, it'll be there when it comes back up.
It says though, it says talking about smelting and cooking. The question is, can you put guns in it, for example?
It says generic.
It does say generic. You make a good point.
So that makes me think that it's not going to limit what you put in there.
We should try that before you make a statement like that.
I mean, but the word for generic, that's
yes,
what,
of course.
Yeah. And we'll have to try it out.
They've also added a fireplace, which is the same thing. It just looks different. And now here's a big one: craftable workbenches. And it says must be used to craft some of the new recipes. So let's talk about these new recipes. Metal shelves for bases have been added. Rugs for bases. Flag poles. Hello, we're going to get the Infection logo flying on a base. Been waiting 4.5 years for that. Added craftable beds for bases. They've added iron ingots, charcoal.
So wait, does that mean, okay, so the beds, does that mean there's going to be spawn points?
Is there not currently spawn points? I don't remember. No, there's not. You're right.
Yeah, I don't remember there being spawn points.
I don't know. Possibly. Iron ingots, charcoal, sulfur, gunpowder, biofuel, this pyrite, which is their new, like, probably it's some type of stone. And they've also added weapons. They've added weapons range 1, 2, and 3 crafting guides. So guides for crafting those. Explosive crafting guides, so you can find them now. You can make them instead of just find them. Most building parts can now be stacked in the inventory and have had their weight reduced. Big weight problem with those. And they've increased the stack size for some crafting components. Probably walls, floors, ceilings, things like that. Can now be stacked and will weigh a whole hell of a lot less.
If they're really trying to encourage base building, this is a smart thing, because you remember how difficult it is just to build the most basic base.
It's just difficult in general but let's talk about base building. How in general it's so hard to just interact with the world because of the carry weight and how much things weigh. You're constantly dropping things off your body because you don't have any space. And you're just you have a weight problem. So this is very good. This will allow you to store some build. We always wonder, how do you build a base if you can never carry enough resources at one time to build it? So this hopefully is going to curtail some of that, which will be good. So that was for items. Now let's talk about crafting. The crafting tab will now show all recipes in the game. Any recipe that you do not own will be grayed out, and it will inform you that Any recipe that you do not know will be grayed out, and it will inform you what you need to craft that item if you have it. Some recipes also require the player to use the new workbench base building part in order to be crafted. That's very similar from Rust, H1Z1, Arc, Atlas, any other game.
Well, now one benefit I want to say about this way that they're doing the crafting tab now. Before, you had no idea what you weren't able to make.
Never.
I mean, you just had you had no clue. It was such a black hole when it came to the crafting system. And so here, at least gives you a goal.
Thank God for the
wiki. That's one thing that I enjoy about Arc is I can see all the things that if I keep working hard, eventually, I can make this in this many levels.
Yeah.
And so I think this gives people a goal, and it'll make them more likely to play. It's something that people will be like, oh, I can make this. Just okay, let's work towards getting this, and it'll make people play more.
Ducky RB in the chat says, if you can't collect items and take them somewhere in a timely manner, it gets very annoying. I don't think we've ever used the word annoying before, Brian, in context, but that is the best term to use. It's not that it's bad. It's just annoying. I just want to I want to get somewhere. I don't have 9 hours to play this. I've got 4 or 3. Let me get some items and accomplish something. And I appreciate that comment, because that is a perfect term. It's annoying. It's not game breaking, but it's just annoying. Yeah. It's just a pain.
It's frustrating.
Very frustrating.
Yeah.
So back on with crafting now. You have to use the workbenches for some items. Many items have had their crafting times reduced. They removed the nail requirements from the plot sign recipe. Big win on that. The nails, pain in the ass to make, are fine.
So you can actually get a base more quickly.
Bingo.
You can claim a spot.
Yes. They adjusted the pipe bomb crafting recipe to use gunpowder instead of shotgun shells. There is an ammo issue. There's just lack of ammo in the game. That's a big advantage for raiding and fighting with your neighbors. They added sheet metal to be craftable from iron ingots, so they've added a new item for that. They adjusted sheet metal to be craftable from iron ingots instead of just finding them. They adjusted C4 crafting recipes to require more C4 bricks, since it can now be crafted instead. These things were not craftable before. That's what I'm saying. The steel sheets, sheet metal, and C4 had to be found in the world. You want to talk about annoying? Running around aimlessly trying to find one more piece of metal to do what you're trying to do, and you just run around and never find it. So that stuff's all craftable now. They've added a recipe to craft a metal pipe. You can now craft the nails, which you were unable to do before. You're able to craft the bed, furnace, fireplace, workbench, shelf, rugs, and flagpoles as part of the base building. You can now craft biofuel. Players can now get iron ingots by smelting scrap metal in the furnace. Players can get sulfur by smelting pyrite in the furnace. Players can get charcoal by burning wood in the furnaces.
Which I assume those things together will make gunpowder.
Probably. Oh, yes, it is. Players can now craft gunpowder, which is the next thing up there. You can now craft several weapons, and you can now craft ammo. 9mm,
Yes.
5.56, and shotgun shells. So that is huge. I mean, folks, this is what 1.0 should have been. These are massive changes that they're making. This is like H1Z1, Brian. A lot of these things are very H1Z1-esque.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, a lot of this
And
stuff.
that's the thing is they should have, and I'm sure we said this early on, is they should really have been going after that H1Z1 crowd, because this was one of the things that was closest at the time to what H1Z1 was.
Yeah.
I mean, it was more hardcore than H1Z1, and I think at the time I said they really need to lighten up on all of this to make it to where that type of a player will want to come play this. It would really boost their numbers, because that audience, the H1Z1 crowd, is looking for that game to fill that spot. And there's some contenders out there. There's a couple that could be that replacement for it, but none of them have seemed to have taken all those players quite yet.
They haven't. So that is under crafting. Now, a base building, the number of furnaces. Now, this is where they still are doing some limitations. The number of the furnaces in a base, because since they are, as you said, generic storage spots, generic storage containers, essentially, that could be an issue. So furnaces and bases are limited to 2, fireplaces are limited to 1. So 30 max spots you can get from those two things there. The pack-up time has been reduced to 3 seconds, which was previously 5 seconds. They fixed the position of the light and fog effects for work lights. So they changed how that stuff looks. Crates can now be stacked on top of each other or other base parts, giving you a lot more flexibility on your design of your base. Plated and metal base parts can now only be damaged by using explosives. Wood parts can still be damaged by melee weapons. That means you can't just sit there all day and just hit things and they will break.
Axe.
Which is what we used to do.
This is the thing that really killed us.
Yeah.
Was that anybody could come along with a hand, just a simple axe, and break down your door.
They can do that with wood.
They just want to sit there for a few minutes.
Wood, they still can. This is just.
But if you make a metal base, it at least takes away that people will have to get C4 and some of the more difficult things to make to be able to actually get into your base.
Yes, a big change on that, and it gives you. And now, actually, we've always talked about this. What was the benefit of going to the higher? What was worth the effort to get the better base building material? Because as you said, someone wants to sit there with an axe for 45 minutes, they can still break your door. Even with higher base, the time it doesn't exponentially grow. It's like maybe an hour more. If somebody's that dedicated, they'll just do it. Now there's an actual reason. Now you have to craft the C4 or find enough of it to blow something up. So they've done that. If a new bed is added to the base, then the owner of the base will respawn at his bed after death. This has no effect on clan members. So they're going to have to figure out how that's going to work with a clan or group system. Right now, I think this is just the first iteration. The owner of the base will be the one that's allowed to respawn, but this is big because you were never able to do that previously. So
I assume after that you would probably, I think what they're saying is that initially the owner spawns that bed. They probably have to go up to the bed. They have to log in, probably go up to the bed and tag themselves to be able to respawn there. It's not going to automatically spawn members to that bed of the clan. They won't have the option to spawn there unless they've interacted with the bed, is what I'm thinking.
I don't know. That is something we will actually have to try. I'm not really sure how they've got that.
That's I think that's just generally how that kind of a mechanic works. So I'm thinking that's probably what they're hinting at.
Okay.
Without saying it clearly.
Any new items in the furnace or fireplace will be smelted, cooked, or damaged if it is depending on the item exploding.
If it is lit, depending on the item. So this prevents you from stacking a bunch of random items in your fireplace.
If it's lit,
turning it on, because it will destroy all the things in the fireplace. So using it as storage, you'd have to take everything out.
H1Z1 had this same problem. If we used to store guns in them, and some jackass would come by and accidentally turn the thing on and smelt all of our guns. This was a problem, and this is fine. This is your decision to make. You got to be super careful. And the furnaces and fireplaces will stop processing items if all players leave the general area. This is part of that relevance system. And it will automatically resume when players spawn back into the area. How do other games, I'm trying to think how other games handle that. I believe if the fireplace is on, it's on, right? And it will smelt all the way through. I'm trying to remember.
Well,
like
I mean, it just depends on the amount of fuel you put in there. So it'll burn through one wood. If you take out the wood, like all the wood and the fuel in there, it continues until that one is done.
What I'm asking you though is in Ark, if everybody left the area, would your stuff still smelt? I don't remember. So in this game, it will not. If you leave the area, and this is probably a resource-based, this is probably a limitation of the engine and the server. But if you leave the area, your smelting will not work, which kind of sucks. But it means that something, you
can't get a process going and then run away like you can.
No, but what you could do is, if you're going to go grab something to eat, you just stay logged into the game for 10 minutes and, then your stuff would smell. So not ideal, but that's probably a limitation with the engine. And that's the update.
Well, they're probably putting everything in stasis pretty much when players aren't around. I mean, that's what Ark would do with the dinosaurs and all these creatures that are running around. When you're not then in that area, those things aren't still running around. They go into what they call stasis, pretty much hibernate until you come back into the area. And so with this, with them, they don't want all these possible, maybe you have a fire going. Well, they don't want all those things processing on the server, all the effects. And so if no one's around, they just kind of pause it. And I think that rather than them try to figure out and do catch-up timers and make everything work when you come back in the area, they're just putting it all to sleep and not worrying. But I assume at some point, if people really raise a fuss about this, I'm sure that they'll go through and figure out a way to have it kind of catch up and be like, okay, well, it finished smelting this, even though it didn't go through the process.
And PH is saying AI I can understand, as in the case of Ark, the dinosaurs would not move or do whatever if there was nobody in the area. But smelting is not that crazy intensive. It's probably not in Unreal, but in Cry Engine, it may.
Do you want me to go in? Do you want me to say really quick why AI would be very different than this?
I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so AI uses pathing. So on the map, the whole thing is set to where it calculates all the places that an AI can walk on the map. And so they can go in beforehand and say, all right, here's a place they can go. So during the time that an AI is walking around, it is doing all these calculations of, okay, I can walk over here and I can walk to this place, and it figures out all the places it's allowed to walk. That takes processing power from the server to be able to allow it to do all those calculations and figure out where are the things in the world. Can I walk there? Can I walk on top of this? Because things maybe there's a car parked in that area and it can't. Well, here there's no kind of calculations that I can think of other than this completed smelting. And so it's kind of strange to me that they're not it's maybe sure pausing that, but making a note of when it started and saying, okay, putting a start time and an end time to these smelts. And if when you come back and it's at the end time, okay, it's done. Like I think they could get around to and not use processing as an excuse as much. I think they should go through and they could work this. I think they probably just haven't yet. I mean, it's going to take some extra work for them to kind of do the makeup calculations because it's not happening in real time, but it's not the same as AI, where AI is actually putting a lot of load on the server to do it. Yeah, that makes sense.
I appreciate that explanation. I'm reading through some of the comments on this, and I mean, in general, people seem to be pretty positive of it. Some people are complaining about the bikes, but obviously, as we've discussed in the past, they just don't work well. And
the quad bike makes more sense it works well and it's consistent, and so for them that's a better alternative at the moment.
And the bike I agree was cool and I liked it, but It was a buggy mess. It had been in the
Yeah.
it's been in the game like a year, or it's been in the game over a year, and since
it's
we
been
last
this year.
played it, and it still was that buggy. And I'm not faulting them because there are some technical limitations with their game engine, but I think this is the right decision. So, Brian, this may be the turn, the turning of the table,
them going
for
towards the
Miscreated.
more casual. Yeah, this is them going for the more casual audience. It's great to say you're a hardcore game, but when your numbers aren't, we've talked about this with H1Z1 too. If it's not enough to sustain a development team, is it worth being that hardcore? I mean, if sure, you've got a small group of people that are like, I love this game, this is exactly how I want it. You have a small group saying that, but if it's not enough to continue development on the game, it's, in my mind, it's not worth it to maintain that crowd. Because if they're not willing to support it, I mean, if you get a hardcore set of people that are willing to pitch out $300 a month, for whatever features or something to put all that money in, sure, you could do that. But no one's willing to do that. No one is going to do that. And so they have to go for what is going to be enough people to justify continuing development, because I think they do want to keep this game going. I haven't seen that they're saying, hey, we're done developing. I mean, they're done with the map, but they seem to be continuing to try to do tweaks that are going to make the game more playable and people want to continue playing it.
I like this, and we are absolutely going to do this for Game of the Week. So we'll pick a week within the next couple weeks to do this, and this may be the first time, Brian, that we're able to I don't know, get somewhere Miscreated and stop getting so frustrated by the lack of progress that we make with. I mean,
we'll have to put it in our game of the week here in the next couple of weeks, so that we can give this a shot and see if it makes
it's
made that much of a difference.
6 people, 4 hours, and we accomplish nothing. That's very annoying and very frustrating for us. So hopefully now, this will be the first time we're actually able to get a base build in just one set. And we've done it before, but it's taken like a Friday, Saturday to get our little progress done. So hopefully that will allow us to do that. So stay tuned for that. We'll do that for Game of the Week here in the next couple of weeks. And I'll say hats off to the Miscreated people. Based on what we just read, and I know we haven't tried it, but based off what we just read, this seems like this could be a game-changing update coming off of 1.0, which was another game-changing update. So looking forward to it.
Very good. All right. So do we want to do a game giveaway now, so we have enough time to let that roll through? All right. So this will be a 60-point raffle. So if you do ! giveaway in the chat and 60 points, which means that you've been sitting here for about an hour and watching the show. And this does accumulate. For people that don't know, this does accumulate from week to week. So if you've been here at least an hour at any point in time, you'll be able to do a 60 points raffle. So I'm going to be giving away a copy of Tower Unite.
Okay.
And this is a early access mini golf, massively multiplayer game. So it has very positive ratings on Steam, and you can play, create, and it's a community-based virtual world party game. So you can make miniature golf, your own miniature golf courses and such. So very interesting. You can try it out, and if it's your type of game, ! giveaway.
Absolutely. And if you're not here joining us live, well, you're making a grave mistake. And you can join us here live pretty much every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern right here on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Infection Podcast. It's also streamed live on YouTube as well if you've got an issue with Twitch. And then it's, of course, available in YouTube after the fact, RSS Podcast, and Twitch VOD, I guess. I don't know of anybody that watches that way, but it is available there. So,
well, one thing I did want to mention is this has no microtransactions.
Oh, that's a big seller.
So that is one selling point. It's got a lot of online games, and PH was pointing out, it's like Second Life on a better engine. You can it's not just mini golf. Like, you can do all kinds of stuff. You walk around this virtual world. You can play games with other people. It's just a crazy world where they have bowling. They have miniature golf. They've got tons of stuff in it.
Yes.
So
yeah, check
if you
that out.
win, try it out.
Yes, absolutely. It's free. So what are you waiting for?
Well, free for you, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, you paid for it, but who cares? Let's quickly just talk about Daybreak. Tweet out of nowhere came out late last week. Actually, no, was it? Yeah, it was late last week. It was Friday. Late at night, I don't remember what I was doing, but I scrolled through Twitter and I saw Mitch Evans at MMO Programmer on Twitter send out a tweet that said, sorry to hear about another layoff at Daybreak today. That truly sucks. If anyone's worked with me and needs references, please let me know. Also, Intrepid Studios is currently hiring. It is a great place to work. So I'm not making a joke. I honest to God don't know how many people could possibly be working for Daybreak that they're laying off another group of people. But I think, as we've been saying the past couple of weeks, Brian, let me know if you disagree. This is the writing on the wall for the for the Battle Royale version of H1Z1. This is the writing on the wall. It's not going anywhere. They're firing more people.
Well, okay, but the thing is where do you think these layoffs are coming from? First of all, they didn't bring anybody on for H1Z1 that I've seen.
Not that I've seen yet.
The only other product that we're still kind of seeing them wait to release is that PlanetSide Arena.
It's
right?
never going to happen. Isn't that what? I will make a bet right now. Write it down in the notebook. That game is never going. Do you have the notebook?
Yeah.
That game is never going to come out. There's just no way. I mean, we've got away from the notebook segment. We need to get back to it so we can hold ourselves accountable. Yeah. I don't see how it could come out, Brian. Who the hell's working for this company? I mean, a whole bunch of people from the H1Z1 team went over to this Nat G thing, and now they're all laid off, and they didn't come back to Daybreak.
The thing is, they were never hired back on.
That's my point. So who the hell's working there? There's I don't know who's there. So I don't see how they could have a new game coming out.
Well, and this is the issue. Is I think that he didn't say what specific team this is from, but this is probably an indicator of something going on or being winding down for that PlanetSide game. I don't know. I didn't even see a press release for this.
No, there's been nothing else besides his tweet. I've seen no other coverage of it.
So, I mean, there's got to be very few people. And PH brought up, their PlanetSide 2 is still getting updates. But I'm thinking this is probably more closely tied to that PlanetSide Arena, that it's been iffy how that outcome is going to happen, whether that's going to be a positive thing. There's been a lot of competition to where they're charging money for that. People will go play a lot of other games that have a lot more features for that same dollar.
My point really is, if they're laying more people off, the chance of them bringing back Just Survive is probably,
I think that's impossible.
That's what I'm saying. It's impossible at this point. There's nobody left to work on it, is what I'm saying. It seems like a lot of what's going on is probably just updates and management and maintenance instead of brand new features and things like that. So I just think it's an indication of the future of Daybreak products. And that's why I don't see how they could possibly release this new PlanetSide game. Unless they're working on it totally in private, but not a good sign if you're laying people off.
Well, and part of this also is you got to think their engine that they're using is so proprietary, and there's such a learning curve. Them laying these people off, they're people that have experience with this very niche product. And it's going to be very difficult for them to hire someone on in a reasonable amount of time for them to get current and up to date and understand this engine that they built in-house. And so I think that a lot of people aren't appreciating the fact that if they ever do decide to spin something up, they have to hire in all these people, and then they have to train them on this very unique product that would take 6 months, at minimum, to get somebody up to speed to where they can start creating things for this. And so I think they're really, you don't want to let someone go in a company if you think that you're going to need them in a reasonable amount of time. And this is just indicating to me that they realize they're not going to need these people anymore, or else you would keep more of them on, because it'd be so difficult to retrain somebody.
So there you go. That's the update at Daybreak. Sad, unfortunate to hear. But it's probably not the last. Unfortunately, it just seems to be the ongoing trend. So that's Daybreak. What else do we have in terms of game updates? Where do you want to go?
Well, one thing I just wanted to mention with Minecraft is that they released the game. You can pretty much play the game for free now, right? The original version,
Mm-hmm.
and it's in a browser.
Very cool.
So it was it classic.minecraft.net, I think.
It is classic.minecraft.net, yes.
Okay, so classic.minecraft.net, and it launches you right, and you can actually play with other people. So you can give them a link, and it'll let you run around and play with other people without having to host a server or anything.
It is definitely cool. Let's see here. Here it is. I mean, for the video viewers, I mean, here it is just running in browser. And there's 32 blocks. It's pretty, I think this is more of I'm going to say a tech demo than anything else right now. But
I mean, it is Java, but maybe they rewrote it.
I doubt it's running it's not running in Java. I don't think it's running in Java.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The original one was Java.
It was, yeah.
I'm wondering if they rewrote it in a more current, like HTML5 or something that is allowing them to do this, because I don't see the Java plugin, any of that code coming up.
No, it's definitely not running on the Java. It's definitely not running on Java. At least it doesn't appear that it is. So,
well, I mean, it's using Canvas, which is HTML5, to show it on there, but I'm not sure what they're using in the back end. So maybe this is kind of a streaming demo, or maybe it's just rewritten in a more friendly mobile. Who knows? It'd be interesting to see what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. So there it is. Very cool. Neat stuff coming out of. I mean, this is Microsoft now that they own Minecraft.
Yeah.
So there you go. You can play this at work now.
And this is their, what anniversary was this? It's like their 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, 2009.
So this is, what is this, the original 2009 version?
This is
exactly as it was in 2009.
Yeah, 23 items. Yes, or 32 items maybe. Very, very limited. And it plays pretty cool. Yeah, check it out. If you're a Minecraft fan, check it out.
All right, so let's go ahead and discuss one thing really quick, and this is not really game related, but China, since we were talking about H1Z1, they're about to hit the point where there's more PC gamers in China than there is the total population of the United States. And one thing that I was pointing out early on is these markets, H1Z1 did this early on. They were like, okay, China, this is a huge market. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that we accommodate China, which is smart business wise. But China, when it comes down to it, they're in the PC gaming industry. They're a $16 billion industry. And so that's why you see a lot of these companies that are really tailoring a game to be friendly with China, with not having blood, not having skeletons, limiting certain aspects of the game, because there's much more possibility of reaching people and selling your product in China than there is if you were able to get a PC gaming computer in the hands of every single person in the United States. So I just figured that would be kind of an interesting note to people, that this is influencing and making the whole gaming industry change. And one thing we've been talking about with the developing and people wanting a union, what's going to stop them from shipping their industries overseas to a place where it's more tailored to make a game for China? I mean, that's kind of one of the dangers. I don't know if it's a downside. It just depends on what perspective you're looking at it as. But if you're making games that are mostly for China, you're going to make games over in Asia somewhere, because of the cultural things and all those things that you need to be sensitive to. They're going to understand it much better than a studio here in America.
Yeah.
So I think, if anything, this is kind of a danger to the gaming industry in the United States, because we've had a lot of the studios here up to this point. But if that's your primary client, you're going to move them over there, and this will just take away studios from being here. You'll still have studios here, but you'll get a lot of them that will go over there. So Just a note for people.
Mhm.
And then one more thing, speaking of China, in Apex news, they've banned over 770,000 cheaters
Ouch.
up to this point. So they said they're attacking this from every angle, and they're coming up on 1 million bans. So they had 500,000, and then 44 days later they're at about 750,000, over 750,000. So I would think that in another month they would be probably pretty close to hitting the 1 million mark.
They are banning more people than a lot of the games that we talk about have in terms of player base. That's pretty.
Yeah,
it's
the total sales that they've done.
It's pretty fun. It's not fun. I don't say fun. Funny's not the right word, but it's pretty amazing when you think about it. The amount of people that are cheating in that game that are getting banned. Like, imagine a game like Miscreated. They'd love to have those people. It's
if
crazy.
They could have 750,000 players.
I mean, that's just nuts.
I'd be stoked.
Yeah.
Yep.
Banned. Those are banned players from the game.
Yep. And so that system uses Easy Anti-Cheat, which some news came up here with Easy Anti-Cheat this week. And I just wanted to let's approach this from two angles.
Okay.
First of all, here's a tech blog, and this is a Linux blog, saying that Easy Anti-Cheat is apparently, I love that word, apparently pausing their Linux support. And so, of course, people in the chat getting in an uproar.
What's a big deal?
Who owns Easy Anti-Cheat?
Tencent.
Which is owns.
Oh, is it? Are they really? Tencent owns them?
Yeah, Epic.
Oh,
Epic purchased.
Okay, so they're owned by Epic. Epic is owned by part by Tencent. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so of course, what are people doing the second that they hear that Epic?
Freaking Epic! It's going to be an exclusive. Only
it's all Epic's fault. Okay. Well, and then it comes out in a short article later that is not true.
Oh.
It was all a lie.
Hmm.
They are not limiting support for Linux on Easy Anti-Cheat. They're continuing to release it. And a lot of this was actually started by our friend who develops a Rust. He went through Gary Newman, and he made a comment about the difficulties of developing in Linux, right? About possibly not continuing Linux support because of limitations by third-party people with his game engine. They didn't. I didn't see anywhere in his note actually saying Easy Anti-Cheat. People then pick the one company that's connected to Epic. They jump on the bandwagon saying Epic's going to stop producing an Easy Anti-Cheat for Linux, and it comes down to this. Now you have this officially posted on blogs. Like these people writing these things actually have a clue what they're talking about,
which they don't.
Which it was all a lie in the end. Had nothing to do with it, but they got the whole comment section in an uproar about how this is going to be the end of Easy Anti-Cheat on Linux, which is going to make a big difference.
Yeah, which would have a huge impact. That is rightfully so something to be outraged over.
Well, okay, the big thing of that is a lot of these servers are running on Linux.
Yes.
So Easy Anti-Cheat needs to support Linux just so these servers have the ability.
I didn't even think about the servers.
To do the anti-cheat on the server side. Same thing with, you have Easy Anti-Cheat and you have BattleEye, which has a Linux ability to execute on Linux. And so that is the primary reason that they do have Linux support, is not for the Linux clients. They don't care about the Linux gamers because that's such a small percentage of the whole pie. It comes down to the servers doing anti-cheat. And so they will continue that. So he did say, they have native Linux support. They'll continue to do so. The earlier comments by a partner reflected ordinary day-to-day prioritization decisions of anti-cheat issues across all platforms and not any change in long-term priority for Linux. So this was something that people were getting in uproar, and nothing has changed. They're still going to have the same support for Linux, but people are looking for someone that they can yell at, specific people they can yell at. And this is just what it is. So don't expect any changes. If anything, they would pause maybe certain types of changes, which I didn't even see them saying. I saw this as the bloggers saying we're going to pause. They said that, we're not changing anything on the local, like we're still supporting it the whole time. I can understand them trying to make changes because right now, part of the issue is most of the cheaters are using the Linux client at the moment. Like a big chunk of them are using the Linux stuff.
Well, that would make
because
sense, right?
They can figure out the code because a lot of these things are more open in Linux. And so that's been an issue, but that doesn't mean they're going to turn off. They're not a Daybreak. They're not just going to turn it off because it's being not used appropriately. They're just going to have to figure it out.
Well, as we continue with the saga of just outrage reporting, I guess is what we'll call it. I mean,
we've had multiple articles in today's
Today.
episode alone of fake reporting, outrage reporting.
Here's the thing. I'm not going to say fake reporting, Brian, because I genuinely think these people just are not investigating anything. Because they're not really. I'm not attacking them.
They are fake reporting. They're not actually reporting. They're not going out and figuring out the actual story before they go and turn around and give it. They're maybe fake investigation.
Oh, maybe
they're reporting it, but they're reporting it, but they're not investigating it. And that should be. They're supposed to be an investigative journalist. If you're going to write an article saying I discovered this or I know this, that means you're an investigative reporter. They are missing the first part. They're doing the report, but they've missed the beginning of investigative reporter. And I think that's been the issue.
Well, and I will say, to their defense, and the Knicks defending these people, what? I unlike in actual news, like if name a big company, Amazon has an issue, right? Amazon's got a whole team of spokesholes that they are told, this is what you will say when people contact us and ask about this plane crashing or this this delivery center of ours catching on fire, whatever it may be. They've got a whole department of that. I'm sure Easy Anti-Cheat doesn't have that. And I'm sure we've seen this from from your interactions and my interactions, Brian. It's impossible to get in touch with these freaking developers. And there's just not enough, there's not really a good platform. So I'm sure in some case, and I don't know, but I'm sure in some cases they attempt to reach out to people like Easy Anti-Cheat. There's no official way to do so, or they don't get a response and they go, well, if I don't publish it, some guy at The Verge is going to publish it and I'm going to lose my story. That's journalism.
I've heard an interview with someone in the industry, very similar to this, in this type of industry. And he said pretty much that when your first thing is you have to get the story out first, and it needs to be something that will get people to click, because it's all about the clicks. It's not about actually breaking news itself. It's how many clicks can we get in this article.
That's just journalism in general. Yeah.
And they're concerned with, if I don't get the story out now, that someone else is going to break it before me, and then they're going to get all those clicks. And so they try to get it out as quickly as possible, where in the old days, you would send somebody out to the site. You would send somebody to go and interview and ask a question to somebody. You don't do that anymore. There's not enough money in the industry, first of all.
There's no reason
to do that anymore. Well,
you can tweet them.
You can tweet them, but the thing is, they're not even really waiting for a response. I'm sure if they would have been able to get a hold of somebody at Easy Anti-Cheat, this would have been clarified before the article was written.
Yeah, and I'm sure Easy and I don't know, I'm just going to use them as the example. I'm sure Easy Anti-Cheat doesn't have a good way to get in touch with. There's no official press pool at Easy Anti-Cheat. It's like a freaking PR guy, and he just didn't respond to it, or they people may have not even reached out.
Easy Anti-Cheat is probably a much smaller division or company than you would think. There's probably not that many people. It's probably a very small office that they just, it's a couple of guys who, and like girls, to be inclusive, that understand anti-cheat and understand that whole section, and they're maintaining it. It's not like these studios to where you have 100 people. I really doubt there's probably over 10 people at Easy Anti-Cheat. It's good, but most likely small.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
All right. How much time do we have?
We've got a couple of minutes. So if is there any other survival we could do? What about Atlas? Is that a
mostly it was just patches and tweaks. Now they did do that big update, and the last update that they did, actually the next to the last, so after the last update that we reported on is 102.47.
Okay.
And so that current, and mostly it's just little tweaks and changes. They have been doing some fixes to some crashes and making optimizations for server side things. But as far as changes the actual game, they now have limited the player shops to 70 slots. And you're now allowed to build more than one player shop per team on an official home server. So you can now build as many as you want to pay for upkeep for. War declaration cost has been reduced to 40,000 gold and 500 of each additional material rather than 1,000. The ability to respawn on your current server when you die on a lawless Freeport server that isn't set to be your home server. So you can now do that. Water creatures will no longer lose their targets close to the water surface. So you can't glitch that out. You can't go out to the water surface and then get them to despawn on you anymore. So other than that, I think it was just mostly fixes and tweaks. One thing is players' shops only cost upkeep on non-lawless PvE style home servers. So it says technically in official PvP too, but only on the non-lawless home servers that are effectively PvE regions. So, and you can tweak those settings in the server files. So the server config. Other than that, I think it's pretty much just tweaks, fixes, bug fixes. So that was the main news for that. One thing with Dead Matter is now I don't think this is totally official yet. They're still tweaking it, but they have a store where you can buy, and I wanted to run some of these things for you. It's kind of like their Indiegogo or Kickstarter type of goals.
Okay.
So they have for $20, I'm going to round up on these. So $20. You can now
Factorio.
You now want your four-legged friend in game. You can now get a picture with them in the frame in game. So these are placed all over the world. So there's pictures of people's dogs, and then if you find your own, you get an achievement if you find the picture of your dog or cat or fish or whatever animal that you're posting.
Can I take a picture of you and put it in there?
It has to be a four-legged friend. I don't think I qualify as four-legged, which I don't know how a fish is a four-legged friend.
So like if I sent them this picture of you holding up mangoes, or this picture of you
somehow I have a feeling
cowboy,
that they might let that one in. I don't know.
So
so that's so that's one of the categories that they're doing is you can have, and they also have one where you can have your name on a hockey jersey.
That's cool.
And the same thing, it'll have a number that you choose, and we already know what number probably will be a million of. You can choose the color scheme, and then you can have your name on the jersey, and so those will be around the map. So, or I haven't seen that it's craftable, but they just say that you'll be able to have your name on there. So I don't know if that's something that's going to be limited to you but it says, okay, so we'll immortalize your name with a reasonable name of your choosing. So they will have they don't want you putting crazy things on there, on a random hockey jersey that zombies and survivors can wear. So they'll randomly be in the world as well. Mm-hmm. They also have, let's see, the single action pack. So I'm the guy with the gun. You'll receive access to the alpha. So if you want to still purchase into the alpha, you can get that, and it gives you access to the alpha and beta, and that's $35 to be able to get into the game. I'll get your opinion on it, whether or not you think that's a fair price. They have that hazmat suit, which was pretty much on their Kickstarter that you can get. I think this is the main thing. Other than that, it's like combinations. Oh, actually, one more thing. For $80, you can immortalize your name on a random in-game park bench. So you can have your name on a park bench, like a dedication, for $80.
So let's be clear. These are opportunities for the for you as the player, that if you really like the game and you really support their idea, this is very similar to what I see with a lot of early tiers on Patreons, where it's giving you a Discord tag and something else. It's really just a thank you as the consumer, a thank you to the developer and continuing the effort. For $40 to get your name on a jersey in game, if you're trying to get a deal or a bargain, is a ripoff. But that's not the goal. The goal is to just help them out and you get something in return. Instead of donating them $40 on PayPal, they put your name on a jersey. And that's fine.
And PHP is pointing out a lot of these were Kickstarter tiers. And so it's just a more expensive version of the original Kickstarter. They're just extending it to where you can continue to do Kickstarter stuff.
This is way better than trying to force shit down people's
crazy
throats.
skins and
which is what they always end up doing because they run into I don't know if it's a money issue or whatever, but then they are forcing stuff down your throat, and then you're forced to make a poor decision.
Yep, and it's something unique. Have you seen any other game do this?
I've seen things similar with names and credits and things like that. I mean, not all of these,
not actual games that you're generally looting in game.
No,
like other people are going to see, and I think this is a bigger selling point for them because a lot of people, it'd be worth it. You might run around and see someone else wearing your jersey.
That would be cool. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? For some people, that'll be enough. They'll be like, oh, dude, that guy's wearing my jersey. Imagine if a famous streamer picks up your jersey and it's your name and your number, and you'll be like, someone would be stoked about that. And of course, streamers, I'm sure they'll have it to where streamers can buy their own version, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's smart marketing. And I think that good for them because it's just a way to do funding without it being them going and coming up with some ridiculous thing that's going to cost everybody. It's purely your choice. Opt in.
Well, and that's it. That's the key thing. Is the opt in. Your decision. What you want to do.
Yeah.
Right. It's as simple as it gets.
Yep. And if you enjoy that, go for it. And it's your choice. And it's something cool and unique. And I think people should, if you want to play that game, and you think you're going to be playing that game, then do it. Support the developers.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to be releasing the summer so in a couple of months here. What, 3 months? Should be summer of 19.
And you said what? You said it's $35 for the base tier?
You can go and get into there for $35, which is equivalent to one of the tiers that they had in Kickstarter of getting access to the alpha and beta.
I mean, that doesn't seem crazy.
Yeah. And they're putting a lot of, it'll be an interesting, it'll be interesting to see how it takes off because you never know coming up into these, whether or not, would you want to be able to predict Rust and how popular it's been?
Yeah.
So it's hard to say if it will. So. All right. Well, we don't have a lot of time. So let me just mention some things. Scum had a new update and they also had a new comic in there. So check out our show notes if you want to go and check out that new comic. Outlaws had 2 new updates this week. Factorio, there was an article that we can get to. It's not time sensitive that we're going to talk about a little bit. You'd post an article about that. Also, we have Elite Dangerous, which came out with their first patch 1 of this April-ish. It's like their April update, but they did their first patch of that. And so they're making some changes to how everything works, some of the areas. And so if you're interested in Elite Dangerous, make sure you check out the notes for that. It's like 3 or 4 pages of notes that they've done. The Black Death has an update, their 0.38 update. The biggest thing that I noticed with that is they now have a king and queen of Mercia. So you have 2 players that rule over all the other players. This is one of those games that you have to dedicate. If you want to be the top of it, you have to, you can become the king and queen over pretty much the whole server. And you will, have different things that you can do that other people can't do. So kind of a unique thing that they've added. They're also added Gladiator AI to the arena map and Gladiator weapons. So if you want to go and do some combat with that would be a lot of fun. They are making consistent improvements to that game, and they're not making a big deal out of it, which I think is smart for them. I think they're getting it to where it'll be a nice surprise for people when they kind of do a push again and have a ton of stuff for people to do.
Yeah.
Rust has their new update, and there is a video for that if you want to check it out. And I just don't think we have time to show it today. Unturned, they came out 2 new updates, and we'll be playing that this Friday. So make sure you get it all downloaded and updated before. One thing they did is they added the ability to craft the random mythical skins. So that's something you can do now. So if you have access to those skins, you can craft them. And they've also been doing a lot of work with that new Belgium map. So they have the and this is something we can actually play. This one just came out. They released it 2 days ago.
Cool.
new Belgium map. So if you want to, we could pick that as if we wanted to for the new map and run around. It says until, let's see, May 5th. So wait a minute here. This came out April 5th. Oh, so that one's not out anymore. So I'm getting my months right. So it ended 2 days ago.
Whatever.
So we won't be doing the Belgium map.
We'll still be playing.
We'll be doing a different map.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Yep. And then also we have Fallout 76, which came out with their patch 9. So they've been doing a lot of tweaks, trying to kind of get people wanting to play that more, changing how carry weight works so you can carry more things, the way that you can craft things and bases. They've just been doing a lot of work trying to make it to where it's just more appetizing as a survival game. And then one that I think we can spend a minute on, there was a new character in one of your favorite games, Dead by Daylight, that was leaked.
Yes, I saw that.
And so this is Ghostface, and they weren't supposed to be announcing this quite yet. But in one of their other things that they were doing, they accidentally showed something having to do with Ghostface. And so people then knew. They did put out a tweet that says, so lucky players got a glimpse of our upcoming chapter release content in today's mid-chapter update. It says we already pushed the right update live to all players on PC. Users will receive it within a few days. In the meantime, I hope you enjoy the early hype on the next chapter. So this was posted today. And so you should be seeing this new character in the next couple of days. But this is pretty much from, what was it, Scream? Is that?
I have no idea.
That the movie it's from? I think it's the character in Scream is Ghostface.
Gotcha.
It's the one with that mask, that kind of like long faced mask.
Yeah, I'm not the person to ask on horror things.
Okay, so that I think that is the character, and there's a video. Well, there's an article that shows some of the leak that they're doing. So there you go.
Absolutely.
How much time do we have? Do we have a few minutes?
As much time as you want.
Okay, I just don't want to push it too long.
Well, yeah, I mean we're at like 2 hours and 7 minutes right now. So whenever you're ready.
Okay, so first of all, I want to mention 1 week from today, Rage 2 will be coming out.
Okay.
Been kind of mixed results on that as far as what people think. I'm still on the fence. I don't know. Just based on the video and things that we've seen, I'm not sure how I feel about it, but that'll be on May 14th. So on next Tuesday, we will have the new Rage 2 coming out. And then later in the year, they'll have the Borderlands 3, which also kind of mixed results on September 13th. A lot of the complaints I've been seeing about Borderlands 3 is that visually it doesn't seem to be that much better than the previous one. It's like they're just making an extra version of the same game, kind of like what you do, like a DLC, as far as how it feels, because it's visually not improved that much from the original game. So, but I wanted to mention, I said that last week that I was going to mention this. I like to watch various streamers in the Unreal Engine category on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
And these are people that are actually developing games. So that's been a lot of where I've been kind of hanging out and just watching and chatting with people that are developing games. And there's this game I ran across. This guy was just streaming it, and he developed it all himself. So this is a one-man team, and he developed a game called New World Horizon. And I'm not saying you should go out and buy it, and it's the greatest game ever, right? But I was very impressed. It's developed under Unreal. I was very impressed with what he was able to do. He's a programmer, and he's just been doing this because he thought it would be fun. And it's a huge world. It actually has so much stuff. And what I noticed about it is how smooth, and how in some games we play, it's crazy glitchy.
Yeah.
Like I just playing it, I bought it. It's like $5. Just as I wanted to support him. But it was just fun because it was a simple game. You can run around. He's got a ton of areas that you can go to. And I was just very impressed that one guy did this, what we see big studios struggling to do.
Huh.
And it worked. It worked very well. So same thing. I mean, this is something we've seen in other titles, where one-man team is able to make something that is on a near tier to some of these big studios that we do reporting on. So I just thought that I thought this was interesting. I just wanted to kind of mention it because what I really enjoyed about talking to him was his excitement about this game. You know, he just was, and he was totally grateful for any kind of feedback. And he's, you know, the thing is with him, like getting one more sale was a huge deal to him because he was just so excited that someone was playing his game.
Hey, man.
And I had a lot of fun running around and playing it. And I think that that's kind of what we're missing in today's development environment is people, you know, it's become so much of a business that people are pumping out games and they don't really care about the end product anymore. And what I liked about this guy is he just enjoyed his product so much and he was doing the best job he could and he was doing a great job. So I just wanted to mention that. If you're ever interested, you should go check out in Twitch, you can search for game Unreal Engine, or you could do it for Unity, whatever you would want to see. But there's a lot of people that just stream them working on games live.
Sounds like something cool to put on in the background while you're doing some work and just kind of have running.
And you can just listen and you can hear them talking about it and you can have it going on another screen. You don't have to be giving it 100% of your focus.
Yeah.
But I personally, I found that enjoyable because I like seeing people that are excited about a game, you know, because that's something it seems like we've been losing out on lately. So, but that's New World Horizon. He just released it a couple months ago and it's just, if you want to check it out, you can, but it is a single player game. It's not a multiplayer game.
And the links for that are on our website, will be on our website, which is infectionpodcast.com. All right. I think that pretty much sums us up for tonight. Do you have anything else before we move into current players, Brian?
No, just remember, get Unturned installed and updated.
Yes,
no
definitely
excuses.
No excuses.
Don't say anything about bandwidth caps or anything else or slow internet, Joe. Just get it installed. It's very small.
There you go. All right. Let's do it. Current players, games, who's playing them, why, I don't know why, but this is who's playing them. Here are the numbers of people that are playing games. All right, let's start it off with R. Currently playing 26,260. The 24-hour peak, 39,547, with a 7-day peak of 56,351. Let's look at Rust. Currently playing 33,198. The 24-hour peak, 47,599, with a 7-day peak of 67,553. How about Unturned? Currently playing 6,838. The 24-hour peak, 14,155, with a 7-day peak of 17,931. Let's take a look at Miscreated. Currently playing 597 people. The 24-hour peak, 830, with the 7-day peak of 1,138. How about PUBG? Currently playing, this number's off, 53,116. The 24-hour peak, 785,910, with a 7-day peak of 825,897. And finally, Atlas. Currently playing 5,712. The 24-hour peak, 7,441, with a 10-day peak just over 10,000 at 10,116. And that is current players. Those are the games and who's currently playing them. Boy, Miscreated is hurting. That's not a good player number. But hey, hopefully this new update, sparks things up. It's new. It's literally like 2 days old.
If they can start bringing people in, and hopefully that then gives them that kind of wake up call of, hey, this is what people want. If it keeps growing the numbers, bring it to the level of casualness that people want.
Yeah.
Because if nobody's playing it, what's the point? I mean, you could stick to your morals of whatever you envision a game to be, but if nobody's playing it, there's no point.
And Ross is saying, I guess Miscreated didn't get the summit numbers. He did. He had a private server.
Oh, yeah. So I actually put a link to an image for this.
Well, I mean, he had servers that somebody was giving them to him, one of the Miscreated server hosts.
But the thing is on that server, it was a maxed out server originally. So it's pretty much 50 of 50.
Yeah.
And someone posted a screenshot where one of the servers is totally empty. The non-whitelisted server is empty. And then the whitelisted server, it has 11 people in it.
Well, if he's not playing it, I mean, that's part of it. I mean, while the guy's
when
playing
he's not on there, people won't play. They're playing it purely for the chance to run into him.
Yeah, well, no, but that's an interesting observation, Ross. Yeah, you would assume the spike would be a lot larger, but here's the thing: that those people aren't going to be permanent fans of the game. They need the survival community to come back.
Yeah.
And maybe this update is that, or at least the start in that direction. If it's, it's gonna be a long process, but
yep. Hopefully, we will see where it goes from here.
probably next week for Game of the Week. I'm just spitballing.
Okay, I would be totally okay with that.
All right.
For tip of the week.
Yes, sir.
All right, tip of the week. So go through and either do a generic gaming tip or one for a specific game. And since we're going to be doing some Unturned this Friday, I'll do it on that. So this is tip of the week. All right, so one suggestion that I keep hearing with this game is that you need to respawn initially until you get a good location, because I know you can say that that's not the most hardcore attitude to have towards this, but you can really get yourself spawned out in the middle of nowhere and just be running around and struggling in the very beginning. So initially, the first time when you don't have any loot, you don't have anything, just kind of respawn until you get a location that's maybe near a town or near a good POI out on the map. And then that's going to help you because you'll actually get some real gear to start out and kind of get an edge against other players or maybe against zombies, which are a serious contender in this game. And then also make sure one thing that we were taught right away by someone who ran into a game the first time we went and played this together, make sure you hit X to start sneaking, because this allows you to get much closer to zombies in the game. So if you're trying to sneak around and loot and there's zombies in the area, you need to hit X to crouch. And then you'll be able to move around them without them instantly aggroing on you. Another thing you can do is you hit Z and you'll go prone, which is even quieter than X, but it is quite a bit slower. So you'll move much slower along the ground. Then if you do get attacked by a zombie, just so you have an idea of what they're doing. Initially for the generic, the low-level zombies, they do about 15 damage per hit. So you can kind of calculate out how many hits that's going to take to kill you. But you do have the ability. They go at 95% of your speed. So whatever speed you're moving at, they're at 95%. So if you're worried that you're going to die and you're not to where you're somehow slowed or anything like that, you will have the ability to outrun a zombie. So don't be afraid to run away, because otherwise you will be doing a run for your loot before it despawns. And it'd be better to try to patch yourself up than have to run and respawn from a death. So that is tip of the week.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Brian. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. All right. So are we ready for this raffle?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's go ahead and draw X Bravo 0. X Bravo. So X Bravo 0, whatever.
Come on. X Brav 0?
0. Yeah. It's X Bravo. So, well, at first I read it as an X Bravo with the 0 at the end, and I was like, "Oh wait, no,
you're killing
X
me.
Bravo."
That's fine.
My screen is dim, so that I don't have crazy lights on.
Wait, so you misinterpreted? But you knew what it was. You just,
I misread it because it was so.
Hey, I'm nobody to be
0.
criticizing. I can't pronounce hardly any words, so it's fine. It's just a joke. It's a prank.
Yeah,
just a prank.
It's fine. He'll forgive me when I send him a free game.
Yeah, you just have to get over it. Oh, jeez. All right. Unturned is this Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, Discord. Hopefully you'll join us. We'll find a server that when we log on is daytime. We'll just find a server that's got a decent player count and is in the day. Yep. So join us for that. I don't know, watch a YouTube video or something beforehand to familiarize yourself with controls and whatnot, or just try to get in the game for a little while. So join us for that. Looking forward to it.
Very good. All right. Is there anything else we need to do before we roll out of here?
No, sir. I think we're good to go.
All right. So if you want to, one thing I want to mention, make sure you go, if you're interested in getting that sale on The Long Dark, make sure you get it before the sale ends. I mean, $7, maybe next week it'll be done. I didn't look to see how long the sale's going on, but if you wait until you think about it next week, it may be over, and that's a really good steal for that game. It's definitely worth it. If you want to find me at Boise Computer on Twitter, of course, my blog, biteoftech.com. Make sure you could go on there and get a link to my YouTube channel if you're interested in game development. Also on our website, infectionpodcast.com, we have links on the right-hand side where you can join our Discord server. It's a great place to hang out throughout the week if you want to even chat on your phone when you're out doing things. Also, we have our Steam group, which gives you notifications of the live show. We have our YouTube, our Twitch, all the audio forms, and then our show notes. If we had some articles that we mentioned in here, if you want to go see the original source for those, or perhaps some of the patch notes that we're referring to, all of those are included in those show notes. And we have them for all 225 episodes plus that we have done. So check it out.
Yes. Quick note. The Long Dark is on sale until May 10th, and it's $7.50. So you've got until Friday to pull the trigger. I'll have to do that.
Okay.
That's a good that's a good enough price that even if you play
really
a
good
little
price,
bit,
and it's a fun game that you can just play when you want to. It's got a story mode now. It's not totally sandboxed anymore.
Mhm.
So you can play through a story that kind of progresses you and keeps you moving forward and having things change. It's not, it's sandboxes. Some of the downside of that is you're kind of always starting out in the same way. You just start in the middle of nowhere and then you're having to do the same process. This continues through a story that is always changing. So you're going to new areas, and it makes it easier to play casually in a section by section basis, because it bases it in sections where you complete that. If you die, then you restart at that section before.
It is nice to see a $30 game that goes on sale. It's a thing I appreciate. So, all right, Brian.
So pick it up.
Well, thank you as always, and sorry you didn't have such a good time on League of Legends, but hopefully you'll have a little bit of a better. You'll be our fearless leader on Unturned. Hopefully you'll take.
I'm always the one who runs in first and dies.
Oh, I'm
first,
dead.
So.
And I was like, well, respawn. We'll catch up with you later.
Yeah.
Thanks for everything, Brian. We'll talk to you. Next week.
Yep. Sounds good. See you guys.
Alrighty, folks. As he said, our website is infectionpodcast.com. All the show notes and whatnot are over there. Now you can follow me on Twitter. I tweet like maybe once a week. You can follow me there. It's at Nicholas M. Craig. Of course, if you missed any portion, any part of the show, you can head on over to our website. It's infectionpodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Infection Podcast. Have a great week, everybody. See you next time.